Good evening, friends. Welcome to the next virtual coaching class organized by Board of Studies, ICAI. So today's evening, it's a marathon for both of us. We're going to have a discussion on advanced ruling under GST law. After that, we'll have a discussion on job work. We will understand what aspects of job work are relevant from examination point of view. Job work is one pet area. Most of the time, we will see one question for 4 marks in your examination. From there, we will move on to understand a couple of miscellaneous provisions under GST law. I'm not covered 100% miscellaneous provisions. Relevant, important from our discussion point of view, I have brought in for today's discussion. Before we start with our presentation, I wanted a confirmation from you. Hope you're able to see the screen, you're able to hear me properly, and there is no issue with the presentation. So if I can have a confirmation, it's good to go ahead. Good evening, Ambika. Yes. So please confirm that you're able to see my screen and everything is good to go ahead. Meanwhile, I'll start my presentation. Let us discuss with the first topic of today's discussion under advanced ruling. So advanced, like today, as I said, we have 3 topics. One is advanced ruling. We will have an entire gamut of understanding why is this advanced ruling, what is the purpose of this topic called advanced ruling, then what is that a person can think of advanced ruling, what aspects one can think as a practitioner. Now you who are going to get into practice very short span of time, I would put it this way: how you can use this as a tool for advising the clients on a couple of GST related matters. Then we will move on to the topic called job work. We'll understand the nuances of job work. We will understand the process of job work, documentation relevant and important under job work. From there, we have miscellaneous provisions. The term miscellaneous provisions is one chapter which is there in our study material. I would use that top chapter as a lesson, as a material which will give a more insight about do's and don'ts, rules and regulations of the GST officers concerned. When we come to the miscellaneous provisions, we'll have in detail discussion on each of the provision, how we need to look into these aspects. So friends, to start with advanced ruling. Now I'll give you a little background about this topic called advanced ruling. As the name goes, advanced ruling. Say, someone has a doubt. Should I need to get registered under GST law? Should I need to enjoy a benefit of exemption notification? When someone talks about a notification, there are several exemption notifications. Say one example, notification which exempts a person rendering services up to a threshold limit of 20 lakhs, though there is an interstate supply. I repeat, in relation to services, there is a threshold limit of 20 lakhs, where though you make an interstate supply, you need not get mandatorily registered because of there is a notification which exempts a person to do so. So if I want to understand what is my nature of business, can I get exempted from getting registered, or is there any restrictions on that particular aspect? How do I understand my nature of business? When I do a particular supply, how do I classify? Is it a classification of goods or is it a classification of services? Assuming if it is a classification of goods, how do I classify those goods? Example, say someone is into the business of this, what you call idli dosa butter. In South India, there's one brand called ID. When this particular company got into this particular activity of selling dosa butter, it's a people who have familiarity with this dosa, we call a butter. It's a butter, dosa butter, which is used to prepare my dosa. So if at all, if I have mixed various things together and I have done a packing, should I call that as a eatable item, or should I call with some other correlatable item? Like example, you have paratha. When maida and wheat powder, I repeat, when maida and wheat powder are mixed together, can I call that as the ingredients of rice flour and wheat flour? Or should I call that as a mixture of, say, pancake? Or should I call that as something called roasted papad? Now, how do I do the classification? Each of these items have got peculiarity. How do we correlate? How do we understand? In Kerala, recently there was one advanced ruling which is very very fantastic advanced ruling on classification of maida. When I mix maida with some of the ingredients, paratha is manufactured out of it. Should I call as paratha or eatable edibles, or should I call that as a pancake? The department has took a stand to call that as an item classifiable at the rate of 12%, confirming that it is as good as my pancake. Now, each of the person has got a different version of looking at things. So when we think of advanced ruling, as the name says, advance, I get a ruling, I get a confirmation from whom? From the government offices. So wherever there is a lack of legal clarity, or I don't have a clarity with respect to understanding of the law, I seek or I take a benefit of this advance ruling. So first and foremost aspect is, whenever we think of this GST law, there is a confirmation from Sankalp, Nilay, Ambika, and Geeta. Everyone, thanks for confirming. Good to go ahead. Thanks. Now, this particular advanced ruling is a mechanism which is going to give a clarity. There are 7 elements. There are 7 elements on which I can take a benefit of advanced ruling. When we proceed in our slides, I'll explain you what are those 7 elements which one can think of seeking a advanced ruling. Then, this mechanism of advanced ruling, it was when first of its sort was introduced under service tax law, where the government felt, let us make a trade-friendly measures. Let us give a clarity for those people who doesn't know Indian laws. Initially, it was a concept which was brought in for NRI or non-resident people. Later, this concept was extended to the domestic people and all trade people under GST law. As of now, today under GST law, if you think, any person who is a resident of India, any person who is non-resident of India can think of making an application under advanced ruling. Is it compulsory that I should register and then make an application? Answer is no. Reason, one of my element where I can seek my advanced ruling talks in relation to registration. So a person can ask the authority, my lord, my officer, please examine my business model. Let me know whether I should register. If I have to register, please let me know what is the point in time I have to register. Also, let me know what is my time of supply, what is my value of supply. So there are 7 questions which are permitted under my advanced ruling. Next, this particular process of advanced ruling is a very easy, friendly process. People who have started career afresh, I would say this is one potential avenue for you to look from your practice point of view. Advanced ruling, you have to pay some nominal fees of 5,000 for making an application. It's a very simple process. There is a form you need to fill, present the facts of the case, and go and file an application with the concerned authority. Now, what is the process involved? I'll take you through in a couple of minutes. Also, we have something to understand that ruling, whatever advanced ruling has been given, this advanced ruling can get altered at a later point in time, whenever the law gets amended, whenever the facts of given case get amended. So business is dynamic. Now, when I sought my advanced ruling, probably there is some sort of state of business on basis of which I have asked a question. Over a period of time, when the business changes, my ruling or my conclusion also get altered depending on the change of the business factors. As of now, Chapter 17 of my GST Act, Section 95 to 106 covers all the provisions in relation to my advanced ruling. Let's kickstart with our learning. First and foremost, a couple of definitions which are set under Section 95. Usually we refer to Section 2 of GST Act for understanding on definitions. As I say, this is one peculiar provisions where section 95 has been specifically carved out. 95 has been specifically carved out only to talk about these aspects called definitions relevant for my advanced ruling. Definitions relevant for my advanced ruling. To start with, first definition called advanced ruling 95A. This particular term 95 says advanced ruling means a decision provided by the authority or appellate authority. There are two authorities here for us to make a note. I would request students who are listening to me, please have a working note. Make a couple of running notes, make a couple of points which are important, which I repeat. If you make a note chapter-wise, those bullet points, at the time of your revision, you need not read entire your syllabus. Looking into those particular bullet points, it is easy for you to recap your topic and also presentation in your examination. I wouldn't request you to by heart the section numbers. I would request only understand the concept. There are a couple of sections which you may quote in your examination because of the frequency of their repetition. For example, section 16, input tax credit, right? So not that 100% you have to quote your section numbers. Now, my definition of advanced ruling, it says it means a decision. Now, always a decision means something which is conforming. Now, a simple example. Parents ask, like when you are going out of home, parents ask, are you going to your office? You will say yes. Are you going to your examination? I will say yes. Are you going to go to the library? I'll say no. You are saying yes or no for a question asked on the basis of a reasoning of the legal principles. So for us to understand advanced ruling, it means a decision. Who is going to give the decision? Bullet points, authority or appellate authority. When I say authority, authority means authority under advanced ruling. Section 95, they have defined authority. We will also come to that. Authority appointed under the provisions of advanced ruling can give their opinion. There is second level of authority called appellate authority. What is an appellate authority? This means an authority one step above my authority of advanced ruling, who are going to hear a matter of dispute. Now, a decision given by authority or an appellate authority to whom? To an applicant on matters or questions specified in section 97 or section 100. For your clarity, I'll explain this particular thing in detail. Section 97, where application is filed by the applicant. Section 100, where an appeal has been referred to the appellate authority. Section 97, this is a simple application which is filed before the authority concerned. Now, sir, why do you go for an appeal? Now, there could be a possibility. I have made an application. I have explained my business model. I'll give one of example out of my experience, which will help you to understand these provisions. There is one particular business activity where a manufacturing company wants to understand whether they can enjoy the benefit of input tax credit under VAT laws. There was a presentation, there was a detailed write-up given to the authority of advanced ruling, where I have said what is the name of the entity, what is the nature of business activity, question frame. I said there is a particular construction activity in relation to factory expansion. In relation to that factory expansion, they are procuring some works contract supplies in relation to laying off my power connector, laying off my power junction, and also some earthwork and construction of a boiler. Now, when I do this particular activity, there are some electrical items and labor which is also rendered by virtue of a works contract. Kindly let us know whether input tax credit can be taken on those supplies. Also, I have mentioned this particular SSC is into the manufacturing activity of a tire manufacturing. Now, when the authority have read, they have concluded the ruling saying that depending on the facts and circumstances given by the SSC through their authorized representative, they cannot take the benefit of input tax credit. Reason, it is not used in furtherance of business. And finally, in the para, end of conclusion, they say, any assessor who use those inputs for the purpose of furtherance of business, they can avail. But however, since the assessee is not using those purchases in furtherance of business, they cannot take the input tax credit. Now, what happened here? When I read entire ruling, top para is as per our explanation. Middle, the conclusion, it is in negative thing. The final para, there was a interpretation which is affirmative to my business. Now, that is a point I felt as a authorized representative that this authority have erred in their interpretation. I can go to the next level called appellate authority. So section 100 talks about your appeal to a next level called appellate authority. Now, this particular definition says any of these two sections, the original authority or appellate authority, if they have given their ruling, if they have pronounced their ruling or their decision in relation to the question which we have asked, in relation to the question what we have asked, that is called as advance ruling, right? There are two people we need to keep in mind. One is authority appointed under this provisions. Second is appellate authority. Appellate authority means authority for advance ruling. Appellate authority for advance ruling. Now, it's a higher forum where there is a dispute, where there is a debate. Why there will be debate? Why there will be dispute? I would say, my lord, these officers who have given a decision, they have not understood my question. They have not examined the facts thoroughly. I would request you to revisit on the facts and conclude the decision. So this is my second definition, which I need to keep in mind. Moving further, applicant. Applicant means a person registered or desirous of obtaining registration. I repeat, applicant means any person registered or desirous of obtaining registration under this act. Based on this definition called applicant, expect 1 3 marks question in your examination. I'll give an example to summarize how this question can be framed. Mr. X, an individual, a resident of Germany, has visited India for a particular project-related activity to the state of Goa. During the process of stay in Goa, he has met various business persons and he has given advice in relation to technical aspects on manufacturing related aspects. Mr. X has received a remuneration to the tune of rupees 10 lakhs. When Mr. X is going back to his native place called Germany, he had a question in mind. Should he need to register and pay GST on that particular trip to Goa? Now, this would be a question frame where the question will be asked, examine the provisions of GST to seek the registration applicable or not. Now, what we will say? We will refer to the provisions of supply, where we will say, this gentleman, Mr. X, has made a rendition of services. In the process of rendering services, he has obtained remuneration from the clients in Goa. This particular gentleman has a benefit under GST law by virtue of provisions of section 95 under advance ruling, where he can see whether he has to register or this activity of opinion given under this particular business trip, is he liable to get registered? We will draw interpretations to the provisions of advance ruling. So here, it is not compulsory that only a person who is registered should file an application. A person whose desire of getting registered can also seek a question. Now, what are those 7 questions? Wait for a couple of minutes where I'll clarify. So as of now, application can be done by a registered person or by a person who is not registered. Application means application referred to rule my section 97. Authority means authority for advance ruling referred in 96. The government has appointed. Now, state government represents one gentleman. Central GST represents one particular gentleman. Generally, a officer of a cadre of joint commissioner will be represented by the state, will be represented by the central government, to formulate an authority called authority for advance ruling. So for you to understand, in this authority for advance ruling, generally there are two people. One is represented from the state, another is represented from the center. This is what we need to understand from the definition called authority. Next, authority. Now, this section 96 says who is an authority. Now, authority for advance ruling under this provisions means authority of center, state, union territory. This shall be considered as an authority. Generally, the appointment of authority under this section doesn't happen below rank of a joint commissioner, additional commissioner and a joint commissioner. Joint commissioner under central GST, additional commissioner under state GST. Generally, these are the two offices who sit together in this particular office. So whenever we talk about authority, the office is occupied by these two people. Next, appellate authority, as I said, a forum which is next to appellate authority. Ideally, commissioner from state GST, commissioner from central GST, these two are the people who sit in appellate authority. I repeat, when we talk about authority, a joint commissioner or an additional commissioner from state, from center would formulate my authority. Appellate authority, this is the highest forum. Commissioner from state GST, commissioner from center GST, these two people sit in this particular forum called appellate authority. Now, application to be filed. Now, as I said, it is very, very simple process for you when you commence your business. I would recommend you to use this as a forum or a platform before you give any expert opinion to your clients. Now, if you feel the law is very clear, go and give an opinion to the client. When there is an element of ambiguity, you can think of this particular route called advance ruling. I'll give you a couple of examples. For you, how do you think of this route called advance ruling? So there is one company which is into manufacturing activity of, say, paint. You would see the paints called Asian paints or various other Nerolac paints, which are applied on the exteriors or also applied on the interiors. Now, this is one business model where a lot of competition is there. Now, there are people who have funds to do advertisement in telemedia. There are people who doesn't have funds to do advertisement in a telemedia. Rather, they give incentives to the retailers. I'll give an example. Say there is a manufacturing company called ABC Private Limited. This company called ABC Private Limited has encouraged the dealers to sell their product called XYZ brand. Brand name itself is XYZ. Now, this particular company says, look, when you sell 10,000 liters of paint in a particular month, you will get a gold coin of 10 grams. What is the condition? You sell, say, 1,000 liters of paint in a particular month for a desired list of paints. You get 10 grams of gold as an incentive. So what happens? I buy gold coins to give to the distributors as incentive. Second, this particular company says any dealer who has met a target of, say, 1 crore as purchases in a particular financial year, this company gives a trip to Mauritius, Singapore or Mauritius. Now, whenever a dealer meets a target of 1 crore, company says, I'm going to buy you tickets to Singapore. Now, a family trip, 2 people will be sent to Singapore, where company bears all the expenses of their travel, boarding, lodging, food expenses, sightseeing, all the aspects. Now, the question comes here. Sir, I am a manufacturing company. I have incurred expenses called gold coins. My jewelry supplier, when he sells jewelry to me, I purchased gold coin. So they have been charging 3% GST. During the year, I have purchased gold worth, say, 1 crore, on which I have paid a sum of rupees 3 lakhs as my GST. Now, please tell me whether I can take the benefit of input tax credit. Also, I have incurred on foreign travel where sum of rupees 18 lakhs has been incurred on travel or event organizing, everything put together. 18 lakhs plus 3 lakhs, 21 lakhs is a GST incurred during the financial year, say 1920. Now, this company comes to you as an auditor, as their tax consultant, and says, say, Mr. X or Mrs. X, please let us know, can we take the benefit of input tax credit? Now, look at the sum. 18 plus 3, 21 lakhs is a tax they have paid. You cannot let go that 21 lakhs. At the same time, if you take that 21 lakhs, assuming that department is going to come behind you and say, no, this is not eligible for input tax credit. Imagine the fate of the assessee. 21 lakhs reversal with penal provisions with interest from the date of availment till date of reversal. Now, entire your career is going to be a question mark. Not to have that exposure, you as a professional, you may think of filing an application under this particular route called advanced ruling. Now, this is one fantastic opportunity for you as youngsters who can think of as a mechanism, you can give a instant answer for the client questions. So for this, how do we start? There's a simple application form called ARA01. Now, this particular application form asks for the basic information. Are you registered under GST? Yes or no? If you are registered under GST, what is the nature of business you're into? Now, what is the question? They ask you to frame a question. On what particular matter you want to get an answer affirmative with respect to the relevant GST provisions. Now, based on this particular question, are there any relevant documents for you to substantiate? So you'll explain the nature of business. You'll explain what is your question. And also you'll give a couple of documents for the authority concerned to examine. Along with this particular application, there is a nominal fee of 5,000, which you have to pay upfront for filing this particular application. Now, important aspect, friends, important aspects, framing a question. I draw your attention. Whenever you talk about this particular thing, learn the art of framing a question. Now, this is going to be very, very helpful for all of you who are getting into practice, who are thinking of making your specialization on income tax or indirect taxation. Reason, when you draft opinion, when you draft a question, that question should be crystal clear, leaving no ambiguity. It is as good as my CA final examination. If you see your CA final examination, none of your questions will have any ambiguity with respect to the problems to be solved. That is how my question has to be formulated and explained. It should be elaborative. I should bring in the facts. I should also bring in the evidences in support of my discussion and provide some documentary details for the authority concerned to examine my particular question. So this is one point for us to understand called application to be filed under advanced ruling. Now, the question on which advanced ruling to be sought shall be. Now, this is one slide which is going to be an eye-opener for all of you. I'll explain you in very easy manner, which can be presented as it is in your examination. To start with, first thing, whether or not an activity done by me tantamounts to supply of goods or supply of services. First question I'm going to ask to them. Look, I have been into a particular business, or I have done a particular activity. This particular activity, please confirm, is it supply of goods? Does it tantamount to supply of goods or supply of services? So first and foremost, I'm posing a question on determining whether there exists a supply. When I refer to the term supply, this term supply refers to section 7. So first question you are asking is whether there is a supply of goods or supply of services. I'll frame an example for you to understand this aspect. Say I'm a company into engineering services. Part of my business activity, I floated a tender with one major big company. When I floated a tender with one of my say one of the big organizations, I got back with a tender for a sum of rupees say 50 crores. I repeat, I have filed no, this application for tender. 50 crores is a worth of contract. I have been awarded with contract. After the purchase order was sanctioned on me for 50 crores, this particular entity who gave the contract have called back that particular contract. Why? Internally, there was some sort of malpractice or some sort of misunderstanding in floating tenders. So they wanted to cancel all the contracts. Now, I have been very clever enough where I have got into a contract where I have put into the terms and conditions. In case if the contract is terminated, not at my end, terminated at your end, you would Uh, friends, give me a minute. There is some technical issue with power connectivity. Let me resume back with the presentation. Just give me a minute, friends. Jay, can you give me the access rights, Jay? Jay, can you give me the access rights to make the presentation? Jay, are you there? Jay, are you there? Jay, are you there? Jay, are you there? Give me a minute, friends. Some technical issue at the institute end. Let me try to get connected. Jay, can you let me the access rights, Jay? Yeah, Jay, thanks. Jay, am I audible, Jay? Jay, can you confirm, am I audible? Okay. Friends, can you confirm, are you able to see my screen? Are you able to hear me properly? Friends, can you confirm, are you able to see my screen and are you able to see me properly? Okay. Sorry for the interruption. There is some technical issues. Can someone of you confirm, are you able to see my screen? Are you able to hear me properly? Once I hear from you, I'll go further, please. Meanwhile, Jay, if you are able to hear me, can you confirm? Are you able to see the presentation, Jay? Jay, can you confirm, please? Okay. Let me wait for confirmation from the students, then yes. Okay. Venkat, thanks for confirming, Venkat. Let me start my presentation. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So good to go ahead, friends. Let me start with my presentation. Meanwhile, there are a couple of questions. Let me answer those questions and come back to the presentation. The first question is from Sankalp. Sankalp says, here it is written that if you are registered or desire to register, how can we go for application? Yes, Sankalp. So it is not compulsory that you should be registered under GST law only to go for advanced ruling. If you're designing, if you're planning to register or you have to register or not, you want to get the answer for that particular element, then you can think of filing a application. It is not compulsory that I have to register under GST law, only then I can file an application. Yes. Thanks for confirming, everyone. Venkat, Sankal, Sumit, Sushil, Ambika, thanks everyone. Thanks. Let me come back to my presentation. So now starting with, I was giving an example called, I have floated a tender for 50 crores, which was terminated. Because of termination, I, as per contract, say 20% of the value, I have to get that as a compensation. So 50 crores, say 20% is 10 crores, quite a fancy good amount. Now, assuming I get 10 crores, I don't know whether this particular element of 10 crores, is it a supply itself? Is it a supply of goods? Is it supply of services? So I can frame a question on first element called, is it a supply? Does it tantamount to supply of goods or supply of services? Now, that is my first question. Now, what else you can think? The moment I say it could be a supply, then the next element comes into my mind is classification. Assuming I get an affirmative answer that it is a supply, what my second issue is, how do I classify that? Do I classify as goods under a particular HSN, or do I classify services under a particular HSN? So next element of important aspect for us to keep in mind is classification. So I know that this particular value, tender value of 20 crores is a supply of goods or supply of services. Now, assuming if it is a supply, how do I classify that? Should I classify that it is a supply of goods or supply of goods? Is it supply of services? I got an answer for that also. Next question comes into mind is, you have clarified that it is a supply. You also clarified that this is a classification. How do I know? How do I know? When should I pay the value of, when should I pay tax on this particular supply? What is the point in time where my liability gets crystallized? So I'm asking questions on section 12, section 13. What is my time of supply? Then section 15, what is my value of supply? So friends, this is what I'm going to question. This is what I'm going to question to the authority concerned. Friends, just give me a second. Yes. So we've asked a question, is it a supply? If it is a supply, I've asked a question called classification. I also got an answer for that. The third question I've asked is, okay, you said that it is a classified as supply of services. How do I know what is my time of supply or value of supply? Even that has been answered. The next important question comes to mind is, look, am I liable to pay tax or is my recipient liable to pay tax? The question here is liability to pay tax. Am I liable to pay tax or my recipient is liable to pay tax? Please tell me who is liable to pay tax. Also, I would like to examine, is there a benefit of a notification which I can think of? Is there a benefit of a notification which I can think of where I can enjoy the exemption notification? So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So first question, I started with supply. Having got an answer for supply, I'll go for classification. Having understood that this is a classification, the next question is, what is the time and what is the value of supply? Having understood what is the time, what is the value, the next question comes, should I pay the tax or should the other party pay tax? Is there any notification under which I can take a exemption benefit? Next question comes here is, application, is applicant liable to register? Look, you said all the answers. Now, am I liable to get registered? If I'm liable to register, then from which date? Is it from the date of commencement of business? Is it from the date of a particular milestone called threshold limit? What is the point I should register under GST law? Finally, admissibility of input tax credit. Having registered, please tell me, can I enjoy the benefit of input tax credit on this particular transaction? So totally, there are 7 questions. 7 questions. I've clubbed them into these particular buckets. So for your convenience, you can make a note in your working note. First thing, I start with a term called supply. Having understood what is a supply, I'll look into my second question. I'll look into My second question called, sir, should I need to classify that? How do I classify? Is it goods or is it services? Having understood that the classification, then the third question comes into mind. What should be the point in time I have to pay my tax, or what is the value on which this tax has to be paid? Then the next question comes into mind is whether I am liable to pay tax or the other party is liable to pay tax. The next element is what is a benefit of a notification? When you're referring to all these aspects, look, there are various notifications. Can I enjoy the benefit under a particular notification? Finally comes is my registration. Do I need to register? Do I need to register for this particular activity? If I'm liable for registration, should I think of availing input tax credit? Now, administrator of ITCs, you have framed various questions. I give an example of this paint business where gold coins are given or the foreign trip is given. I'll put these questions saying that, look, I've done entire this business activity. Please tell me on these procurements, on these purchases, am I eligible for my input tax credit? These are the 7 questions I can frame in my application for advanced ruling. Let me see if there are any questions so far so that I can answer them. Now, there's one question. Sir, is this application to be filed online? Deepak has asked the question, is this application to be filed online? Answer is yes, Deepak, this application has to be filed online. Then there is one more question from Sumit Jain. Can we file an application with appellate advance ruling for Article 269A? This is something, no. Sumit is very smart student. Sumit is very smart student. He refers to Constitution of India, Article 269A. I appreciate your knowledge on this constitutional matters, Sumit. For benefit of other students, I'll put this question this way. Question of Sumit is, said there is one article called Article 269A, which we have discussed in relation to interstate supply. If you recollect the topic of exports and imports under GST law, I have taken you through a particular provision called Article 269A, which talks about constitutional authority, which was giving a clarity on import of goods, export of goods, import of services, export of services, which is deemed to be said as interstate supply. So that element called determination of place of supply. So Sumit asked one question called, can I file an application under this GST law to see whether the question on place of supply can be questioned? Does it tantamount to intrastate supply? Does it tantamount to interstate supply? This was a question asked by Sumit. A fantastic framing of question, Sumit. Answer is no. Reason, under GST law, under section 97, only 7 activity have been permitted for me to file an application. So one extension of question, what Sumit has asked us. Sumit asked, can you file an application under 269A article? Now, one question I'll ask. From an advanced ruling point of view, I'll go to the advanced ruling authority and say, look, I'm registered in the state of Maharashtra. I have my customer in the state of, in USA. I get some inputs from them to do particular business activity, to do some survey. I do all those activities put together. I develop something called project report. I issue this project report to this entity in USA. Please tell me whether it's a zero rated supply, yes or no. Now, I'm not asking whether it's a supply. I'm asking, please confirm whether it's a zero rated supply. That means, is it an export of service? Is it an interstate supply? Now, that is the answer where the ruling authority says, look, I have been guided only with 7 questions. Your question is in relation to determining place of supply. Only when I determine place of supply, whether it is an intrastate or interstate, comes into picture. Only then I can say it's a zero rated supply. Because my hands are tied, I can explain only these 7 elements. The question of interstate supply cannot be taken up. So answer to your question, Sumit, it cannot be taken up now. And again, I appreciate your presence of mind, Sumit, where you have articulated question very well. you're fit enough to kickstart your practice. I appreciate that. This one question, Sankalp, Sankalp has one more question. In one shot, can we ask several questions? Give a try, nothing wrong. Give a try, nothing wrong. This is how we need to learn every day. So Sankalp asks, sir, can I frame multiple questions? Only thing keep in mind, those questions should be to one business, to that particular person who's applicant. Now, if you ask, it's a client A, client B, client C, all their clients' questions, I'll pull together, put a burden on one unregistered fellow, I'll go to the advanced ruling authority and ask all the questions. One fellow is into, say, paint manufacturing activity. One fellow is into job work activity. One fellow is into works contract activity. Now, if you frame all these business, all the questions under one application, I doubt this sense, this smell that you are a smart fellow who have taken fees from 10 people, you've charged them 1 lakh, and you've paid 10,000 to the advanced ruling to get a confirmation. They will say, no, it cannot be. And also, there is one drawback. I think this question was asked by Sankalp. Let me just see the name. Yes, Sankalp. So, the possibility of budging all the questions of different SSC, there is a drawback. Reason, this advanced ruling is applicable only to the applicant. That means I, Mr. Praveen, when I go and represent in my advanced ruling, they'll say this ruling is applicable to Mr. Praveen Gella. It is not applicable to Sankalp. It is not applicable to Sumit. They'll specify clearly. They wouldn't say Sankalp or Sumit name, but they will say this is applicable to Praveen Kumar Gella, right? So I alone can enjoy the benefit of the ruling and no one else can enjoy it directly, right? This is a takeaway from this particular slide we have to keep in mind. Going further, procedure on receipt of application. Now, generally there will be a officer constituted, or there is a authority, there is a proper officer, there's an officer. I file an application. This application will be taken by the concerned officer. That concerned officer will forward to the authority. Like as I said, there's one state, there's one center, two different offices, two different places. One is a joint commissioner, another is an additional commissioner. So the concerned officer, he will take my application. He'll make a copy of that application, send it one to state, send one copy to center. And this authority will call for some information to this concerned officer. When they look into the application, they'll say, okay, your application says these questions, but to answer this question, I need a copy of your contract. Example. This tender which have floated, I was talking about one example called floating of a tender, getting a contract for 50 crores, termination of that particular contract. Assuming I have floated a tender, I got a contract awarded for 50 crores. Some reason this contract was cancelled. As a part of cancellation, as I said, 20% of that contract value is given to me because of the cancellation. Now I've asked a question to the authority, please examine whether it's a supply or not. The officer will say, the authority will say, look, question frame is good enough, but I need to see the contract. On the basis of contract, I would examine how this money is being paid. Is it what you call abstinence from doing an act? When you are tolerating an act or you're abstaining from doing an act, is that the element which is covered? So there is one element called Schedule 2 under my GST law. When you read your central GST, there is Schedule 2. In Schedule 2, there is something called tolerating of an act or abstaining from doing an activity. So they would say, for examining this particular provision, please provide the copy of contract. I would examine and then I'll give my opinion on that particular matter. So what will happen? This applicant will give the documents to the officer. Officer in turn will forward to the authority. Those things they will examine and they will say, yes, like Sumit, a brilliant student, asked one question. Authority also will say, look, this question was asked by this particular applicant. I feel that this application cannot be admitted. It will be rejected. Why? This applicant asked a question on Article 269A, which is in relation to imports, interstate supply. My GST law, my advanced ruling 97 does not permit me to examine a question on determining place of supply. Because I cannot determine place of supply, I reject the application. So here what is happening? The application, whatever has been filed, first and foremost, they'll examine what is your question, what is your documents given. Now, the question which has been framed, is it clear? Is it asking any of those seven aspects? If the question is very clear, they will say, I admit the application. If the question is not clear, they'll say, if the question is ambiguous, so I'll reject the application. Or the assessee, the applicant has asked a question which cannot be answered in my section 97. Possibility to reject my application. This is something which we need to keep in mind. The authority shall not admit the application where the question raised is already pending or decided in any other proceedings in case of the applicant. So what they say, now this is generally happens, especially in India, we have this tendency. Say, take example of this COVID time. During COVID time, many initiatives were taken from by Government of India. One of such initiative is free ration. People have been suffering. They have been provided with rice, dal, and wheat for their livelihood. It's not only for ration card holders. Every person who is having disability, they say, you come with your Aadhaar card, I'll give you 5 kgs of rice, 5 kgs of dal, and 5 kgs of wheat. It was one of the good initiative. Now, assuming like some reason your application is rejected, what we will do? You will stand in a queue, you will go, they will reject, again you will come back in the queue to cross-check if there is a different officer, whether he may consider my application. Something like your visa processing. They have rejected your application. You will file one more application to check whether the mood of the officer, whether there is a mood swings of the officer, can he admit my application so that I can get a favorable answer. Now, this is what generally happens, where the authority says, look, you have filed your application and your question raised is already pending or it is already decided. So please don't file your application. Now, if it is pending, don't come back and ask me again the same question. It is already confirmed. Once it is confirmed, don't come back with the same question to me. Sir, earlier you said input tax is ineligible. I'm filing a fresh application with small change in the question. Now I'll say, look, they'll say, I'll kick you. You've asked the question, I said no. Again, you have come back with the same facts and you're asking again. No, like earlier you came in green shirt, now you're coming in blue shirt. I wouldn't admit. That is what this provision says. Look, you file an application, it is pending. So don't come again. You file an application, already have given an opinion in one of the case. So don't come again with the same question on the same subject matter. And they say, when the question is already pending or already decided, then no application shall be rejected unless an opportunity of being heard is given. Now, principles of natural justice. Always, many of the tax laws keep in mind drafting provisions. Unless an opportunity of being is heard, they wouldn't reject the application, right? Similarly, when the officer wants to reject the application, they'll say, I'll give an opportunity of being heard, then only I'll reject the applications. And reasons of that rejection shall also be recorded. So what if my application is not rejected? Then they will hear the matter and they will give their opinion. They'll give an order in that particular matter. When the application is admitted, after collecting all relevant facts of etc., they'll be given opportunity of representation. Now, generally, what happens when I file my application? The officers would call in for a personal hearing. They would like to hear from the assessee. Look, you have filed an application. You have explained these aspects. Do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to convey to the authority before they take a decision? Generally, applicant, he himself or an authorized representative can come before the authority concerned. A practicing chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, advocate, manager, or any of the employee represented by the entity can come and do the representation. In the process of representation, there will be a couple of questions, there will be a couple of clarifications which will be provided. After hearing all the aspects, this authority, they give their advanced ruling, they give their opinion. Now, that is the finality of that particular process. Where the authority, like in the process of discussion, as I said, there are two people, one from center, one from state. Now, if there is a difference of opinion, like the state fellow says, yes, ITC is eligible. Central officer says, no, ITC is not eligible. There's a difference of opinion. When one of the member has a difference of opinion on a question frame, then that cannot be resolved. They will say, look, we are not in a position to confirm on this particular matter. So let this matter be referred to the next level called appellate authority. I repeat, when question has been asked, the members have a difference of opinion on a particular question. They will record that in writing, saying that I from center disagree with the eligibility. This officer from the state agree with the eligibility. Because there is no concurrence of the thought process, let this matter not be resolved at this particular forum called appellate authority. So authority, let this travel to the next forum called appellate authority for hearing this particular matter. The authority shall pronounce this advance ruling within a period of 90 days from the date of application. As per the law, they say within a period of 90 days, they should give their opinion. They should give their order in relation to the question what was asked. Ground reality, it goes beyond 200 days. Examination, don't worry about that. You just need to say that as per the GST provisions, the advance ruling authority should serve their opinion within a period of 90 days. Next. This advance ruling, which has been confirmed, shall be duly signed, and a copy of the same will be given to applicant, consent officer, jurisdictional officer. I repeat, there are three people whom this particular application comes into. First person is the applicant. Second person is the consent officer. Mood. 3. Just give me a minute, friends. Okay. This particular advanced ruling authority says, look, you have asked a question, I gave an answer. And that confirmation will be confirmed to three people. Who? One is consent officer. Who is the consent officer? The officer who is taking the application, who is coordinating with the authority. So they'll give a copy to the consent officer, to the applicant, and to the jurisdictional officer. Two people you have to keep in mind, very important people. VIP, I call them as VIP, very important persons. First person is applicant. Second person is your jurisdictional officer. The authority says, look, I'm going to give you advance ruling. And this particular advance ruling is binding on two people. One is applicant, second is the jurisdictional officer. These are the two people on whom this particular advance ruling is going to be confirmed. Now, communication. Now, there is one particular slide called miscellaneous provisions. I'll cover in detail what you understand by the term called communication. How does this communication happens? Appeal to appellate authority. Now, as I said, first and foremost, if the officers have difference of opinion, they will lift their hands. I cannot give an opinion. That travels to the appellate authority, or consent officer, jurisdictional officer, and applicant. I repeat, either of these three people, when aggrieved by the advance ruling, 99.99% consent officer will not disturb his mind. He's always a happy person. He's like a postmaster. Document comes in, document goes out. Document comes in, document goes out. So this consent officer will not be deterred, will not be affected with the advance ruling. Possibility that there is a jurisdictional officer or an applicant who are aggrieved. Why there is a agreeable difference of opinion? The jurisdictional officer says, my lord, this particular assessee's nature of business, I don't think he should give a benefit of input tax credit. Now, why? The jurisdictional officer will come with his research and development. I read section 16, I read section 17, I read the advanced ruling of Gujarat High Court, I read the advanced ruling of Kerala High Court. Now, all these are the arguments which are put forth by the jurisdictional officer. The same way, applicant also will come forward. My lord, I have read the Industries case law. I have read the Mafatlal case law. I have read this Kerala High Court judgment. I have read Odisha High Court judgment. I have read section 16. Now, this applicant is going to come forward with all the apprehensions. My lord, under Central Act says this was a law settled by the Supreme Court, right? All these are the things which are put forth before appellate authority. When there is a disagreement of the advance ruling given by the authority, who? Advance ruling authority. Now, they say, within a period of 30 days, you feel that this authority, this advance ruling is not in your favor, come and file an application called your appeal. This appeal, 30 days is the time limit. If required, if there is a sufficient cause given, another 30 days will be given for me to file an application. Now, originally, I have paid 5,000 as application fee. Now, I would be paying 10,000 as application fee to the appellate authority. So, please keep in mind, you as a professional, you have already paid 5,000. Now, you have to pay another 10,000 to go for appeal. This is a nominal fee under my advance ruling to file an application with my appellate authority. Next. Now, appellate authority, they will hear the matter. They will hear the contention of the jurisdictional officer. They will also hear the matter of my applicant as like parents. Generally, when there is a fight between two kids, the parents will hear this kid, then they will take a decision. So this appellate authority will listen to the state officer or central officer, will listen to the applicant, and then whatever they think fit enough, they pass order. How do they pass an order? When they pass an order, look at this. They confirm the understanding of advance ruling authority, or they may modify that particular ruling. Only two things are there. One, copy as it is advance ruling decision and confirm, yes, even I have the same understanding, or modify that particular opinion. Modify. When I say modify, my advance ruling authority says ITC is eligible for out of 5 questions, 3 questions eligible, 2 questions ineligible. Modification, all 5 questions ineligible, all 5 questions eligible. Now, this positive advance ruling, we never saw. It is next to impossible in practicality. For examination purpose, please understand what is that they have been doing. Now, they say within a period of 90 days, like my advance ruling authority, even appellate authority, within a 90 days from the date of application, they have to give that particular order copy. Now, where even here, now appellate authority is not a forum where they have synchronization like husband and wife all the time. Like Parliamentary Parmeshwar, it is not possible everywhere to have a synchronization. There could be a dysynchronization at the appellate authority also. Now, who is there in appellate authority? Commissioner of State, Commissioner of Center. Possibility that both of these gentlemen also have a difference of opinion. Then they say, when these two people have a difference of opinion, it is presumed that there is no advance ruling which is given. And also they say there cannot be an advance ruling which can be given in this particular question. Till date, we didn't come across this scenario. Till date, all the advance rulings, 99.99% they have confirmed in appellate authority. There was not even one occasion where we saw they have set aside this favorable decision of a advance ruling authority. Now, once they hear the matter, they will serve that particular order copy, and they communicate that particular order copy to the applicant. Rectification. Now, this is one fantastic thing we will see in majority of advance ruling. Rectification of advance ruling. Why rectification? Printing mistake. Now, I would tell the practical experience, there will be plethora of issues in the advance ruling. Why? Because there will be 30 to 40 applications in a month. In the process of typing this, the so-called superintendent or inspector, they copy here and there, and they'll say the advance ruling of Praveen Kumar Gella in relation to registration. I asked a question for input tax eligibility. They will confirm me order on registration, or they'll put everything. Applicant Praveen Kumar Gella, date of application 30th September 2020. But I could have filed the application on 13th September 2021. They will travel back in time for 1 year. Now, these are all called mistakes apparent on the face of the record, right? So these things they'll say, if at all there are any mistakes apparent on the record, if such error, if it is noticed suo motu by the authority or appellate authority, or if it is brought to their knowledge by the jurisdictional officer or the applicant within a period of 6 months, then they will say, they will rectify that particular order and they will give a fresh order. In case, in the process of rectification, there is a negative impact of the decision. First decision is favorable. Second, like when they're saying entire discussion as per the provisions of section 16, this particular SSC is into so-and-so activity. This activity is not a supply of taxable goods. So there is an ineligibility of input tax credit. This is the examination of my legal provision. When I come to the conclusion, as per the above discussions, the SSC is eligible for input tax credit. Now you have interpreted here that the SSC is doing a supply of exempted goods. In the below conclusion is said, SSC hence is eligible for availment of input tax apparent on the record. Then they may change that particular apparent mistake. Where there is a change of mistake which is going to reduce my right of availment of input tax credit, they say the appellant will be given an opportunity of being heard, then they will do the particular correction. Now, this is one slide which I was talking where Sankalpa asked this question, where can it club all the questions together? Please keep in mind, when an opinion is given under advance ruling, that particular opinion is binding only on the applicant and the concerned officer or jurisdictional officer, right? This advance ruling cannot be referred, like I was telling, in appellate forum. The department officer cannot say, assuming that this appeal is happening in the state of Tamil Nadu. The government officer cannot say, my lord, in the state of Gujarat, the same issue was examined, they have disallowed the input tax credit. Please understand, this advance ruling is only binding on applicant and concerned officer. It cannot be enforced on any other person. One another example. Say, Sumit has filed an application. Sumit is very intelligent and very clever to convince the officer. Sumit filed an application for eligibility of input tax credit. Assuming he got a favorable order. Now keep in mind, similar business model is there for another client. Just because this particular SSC got a favorable order, just because Sumit got a favorable order, this order of eligibility of input tax credit cannot be put forth to another SSC who is in the similar line of business. Reason, they say applicability of advance ruling is only on that applicant and the jurisdictional officer, not any other SSC. So I cannot copy this advance ruling, either favorable or unfavorable in any occasions. Similarly, for you as a student, as a future chartered accountant, one important aspect. You have read section 73, you have read section 74 with me. When a show cause notice is being issued, none of the officers have a right to quote, this particular matter has been settled in so-and-so advance ruling. Relying on that particular judgment, you are supposed to reverse ITC. Then you have to answer them back saying that, my lord, look, section 103 says, you are not having any jurisdiction on that. So it is not binding either you or on me as a SSC. This is only binding on that fellow who has filed an application, only that jurisdiction officer, no one else. That is what we need to make them clear. The above advance ruling shall be binding unless the law, facts, circumstances, or any other aspects doesn't change. Now, advance ruling can be void. What do you mean by void? Advance ruling is null and void, ineligible. Why? they say where the authority or appellate authority finds that advance ruling which is given, it is obtained by the applicant by fraud, suppression, material, misrepresentation of facts. The assessee has misrepresented. He has suppressed the facts. On these grounds, that particular advance ruling can be set aside, or it may by order declare such ruling to be void ab initio. Why? Because the facts which were given and the reality is completely different. They say when the assessee filed his application, he explained that this is a business. He explained that this is how I use the input credits. But reality, ground reality, it's completely different. That could be one reason why advance ruling can be set aside. Now, before they set aside, they always give an opportunity of being heard, saying that, look, this is the grounds why I feel that this advance ruling should be set aside. Now, the period beginning with the date of such advance ruling and ending with the date of order under this chapter shall be excluded while computing the period under 73, 74. 73, 73 to issuance of a notice, 74 to issuance of a notice, 73, 10 issuance of an order, 74, 10 issuance of order. Time limit 73 to 3 months, 73, 10 3 years, 74 to 6 months, 6 months, 74 10 5 years, 5 years, right? For passing an order under 74, 5 years. For passing an order under 73, 3 years. For issuance of a show cause notice under 74, 6 months. 73, 3 months. This is something they say that period shall be excluded from the date of filing of such advance ruling and ending with the date of passing on order. Now, next we will move on to the another important and a fantastic topic called job work. Just give me a couple of seconds. So we have our next topic called job work under GST law. Job work under GST law. For those this activity of job work, I would say this is one fantastic aspect which one should think of. Reason you will definitely come across this particular activity in your day-to-day aspect once you get into practice. Job work under GST, I'll give the background, then we will get into the main subject. Before I start with job work, let me just see if there are any questions which were there. Let me check the questions. Sumit has one question. It means place of supply is exclusively decided by central government only. It's not decided precisely, Sumit. It is always judgmental. In the process of audit, it gets determined. So I cannot, unfortunately, file any advance ruling. However, if there are any settled High Court or Supreme Court judgments, that would be a landmark. That would be a way where I can rely upon that particular judgments. Next, there is one question from Sankal. Communication means served, received, or issued. This is what I was talking, Sankal. Hold with me. This aspect of communication, there's one topic called miscellaneous topics under GST law. I'll clarify what do you mean by communication. Is it posting the letter? Is it receipt of the letter? What exactly they understand? If they mean, I'll take you through the relevant provisions. There's one more question from Sankal. AR in any case binding, not binding of other assessee until it becomes a notification. Fantastic. I can see most of you are much ahead of the thought process of this particular learning. Now, one fantastic question asked by Sankal. Sir, is there a way advance ruling is going to become a notification? Possibility is there where not to get into litigation, government may issue a notification to confirm that as a binding on all the SSC. Answer is yes, Sankal. Possibility is there. Now, let's move on to the important topic called job work under GST law. Job work under GST law. Now, this is one area where there is a process or there is an activity for converting goods from one form to another form. Now, what do you mean by job work? Say, I have loose papers like this. I have a loose sheets like this. These loose sheets together have to be bundled. Now, all these loose sheets have to be bundled and I have to make this particular book called scribbling pad. So the activity of taking the loose sheets, applying the glue, putting a hardcore bond, putting a cover page and making a scribbling pad. This could also be a job work. Now what happens here? The loose sheets are supplied the principal. The hard cardboard is supplied by the principal. This covering letter is also supplied by the supplier. What I will do, I apply the glue across, I cut in the desired shape, I cut or make it even all the sides, and I supply this finished product to my principal. This could be an activity called job work. So job work, a process or an activity where a goods can be converted from one form to another form. A paper could have been converted as a scribbling pad. Now this could be a job work. Or a paper of this size converted of this size. Mere cutting of a paper, this also could be a job work. Paper before cutting, paper after cutting remains as paper. I could call that as job work. So this is one thing which we need to understand in relation to my job work activity. Now, activity may result in a manufacturing, may result in evolving new goods or may not result in evolving new goods. Now, this paper, when I have clubbed together and I have bunched together, I got some new product called scribbling pad. So it's not guaranteed that always a new product comes into picture. In this particular job work activity, there are two parties called principal and job worker who have a relation called principal to principal. I repeat, in this particular activity, there are two people involved. One is called principal, maybe a manufacturer or principal. Another person on a principal to principal basis called job work. The relation between these two, not principal to agent, it's on principal to principal basis. Now, this activity of job work, the activity of job worker may be registered under GST, may not be registered under GST law. Now, why do I get into the job work activity? I'll give you a couple of points which are relevant for you. Most of us, when we think of a business model, now we talk about economies of scale. We talk about cost cutting elements. Now, these are a couple of things which we need to understand. Why is it important? How does it comes into picture? Decision making. Management has decided, let us cut down the labor charges. Sir, how do I cut down the labor charges? Why should I cut down the labor charges? There is something called labor unrest. How does labor unrest is coming? Because of your trade union. Government, the company says, no, I don't want to have my headcount going beyond, say, 50. Why? Because of, say, union which they are going to form. Now, what I'll do, I'll try to curtail my activity in-house to the extent that 50 can do. And the rest activity, I'll get it externally by a person called job worker. So what happens here? My raw material or my semi-finished goods shall be sent to a third party called job worker. I repeat, inputs semi-processed, which is called semi-finished goods. So I repeat, inputs in semi-finished form are supplied to a third party called job worker for further process and to get back those material after the job work or to make a supply from there itself. I repeat, once the activity is done from the job worker, I may get it back or I may supply from there itself. I'll give an example. Say, when we think of Haryana or Uttar Pradesh, when you think of Uttar Pradesh, say there is one manufacturer in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Say his place of business is in North Uttar Pradesh. He has a job worker in South Uttar Pradesh. Now, the material are sent from north of Uttar Pradesh to south of Uttar Pradesh. After the job work activity, these goods have to be supplied to a customer who is there in, say, Haryana. Now, Assuming logistically from the job worker premises, it is hardly 30 kilometers to my customer premises. I repeat, the principal place to job worker place, there is a distance of 150 kilometers. From the place of job worker, my customer location is say 30 kilometers away. Now, instead of getting the goods way back to the principal, from there again sending it to the customer, it is always convenient to supply from the job worker premises to the customer premises. 30 kilometers is a distance. Now, that could be one possibility we can think of my job work activity. Another example. Tamil Nadu, like when we think of South India, Tamil Nadu is well known for availability of skill set, availability of labor, which is little lesser cost. Majority of the industries do prefer to have job work activity instead of say Tamil Nadu. Example, just for an example purpose. Say there is a manufacturer. I'll give a fantastic example for you to think of. Let me not name the brand. So there is a manufacturer of engine, DG set, the diesel engine set, the generator. When the power goes off, which happened just a few minutes ago, when the power goes off, automatically the power is shut down, entire thing is in dark. Now you have something called DG set. The moment power goes off, my DG set gets on, the supply happens through a DG set. Now, assuming there's one entity which is in the state of Maharashtra who are into manufacture of engines. There are various leaders. Say like there is Kirloskar, there's Mahindra and Mahindra, there is what do you call Suzlon. Now these are all people who have their business unit of manufacturing engines. That engine which is manufactured gets assembled in the state of Tamil Nadu. Why? Availability of resources, customer base, and cost of operations. Entire manufacturing activity is not done in Maharashtra. 50% is done in Maharashtra. The goods are shipped to Tamil Nadu. In the state of Tamil Nadu, assembly of the products happens, and from there, the goods get dispatched to the various customers. See, Mahindra and Mahindra have decided to set up into business model. Goods are sent, only engine is sent from Maharashtra to Tamil Nadu. The job worker in Tamil Nadu does an assembly activity. So in case of a DG set, the engine is the heart of the DG set. Engine is a brand of say Kirloskar or say Mahindra. That comes to the state of Tamil Nadu where they put into a box called acoustic. Now, what is an acoustic? Which doesn't emit noise outside. Acoustic is an exterior box. So this is like a box. This box, when you put engine into this box ensures that the sound doesn't come out of the box. That's called acoustic. I take that engine, I add something called control panel. What is your control panel? It's a electrical wiring. A button, switch on, switch off. Manual control, switch on, switch off. Automatic control, power goes, DG gets on. Power comes, the DG set goes off. Now this is called control panel, giving instructions like a brain. The brain is available in Tamil Nadu. The heart is coming from Maharashtra. The box is put onto these two things and it is sold as DG set. Now, this activity can be taught where there is economies of scale of operations. Also, when there is a easy supply to my customers from a particular location. Instead of sending the DG set as it is from one state to another state, cost of transportation, cost of material, cost of my assembly, then your working capital blockage, various reasons. Now, that is why management thinks of this activity called job work. Once you get qualified, you have a very good role to play in this particular job work where people do advise on this particular economies of operation where cost of operation can be saved. Now, this is one business model you can think of. Now, value of supply, principal to job worker. This is one particular element which we have to keep in mind. When I go through my slides, I'll make you understand how do we understand the valuation aspects under GST law. Let me go further on this particular slide. First and foremost, to start with my definitions, first definition called capital goods means the value which is capitalized in the books of accounts of a person claiming the input tax credit, which are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of business. I repeat, capital goods means value of which is capitalized, where in the books of accounts of the person claiming input tax credit. I'll give an example. Please carefully follow with me with this example. Say we want to buy a DG set. The cost of DG set is 5 lakhs. Say I'm a chartered accountant. I'm into business of rendering services. In the process of my business activity, I want to ensure that there is no power interruption. Why? I would have training service. I would have various meetings with my clients. I would have couple of services which should be uninterrupted. Now, what I'll ensure, there is a power backup. When a power backup is not good, I would like to buy a DG set. Cost of DG set is 5 lakhs. Praveen, when he buys the DG set, he would call that as capital goods. Why? Praveen is going to capitalize that in his books of accounts. Now, this DG set, assuming for a moment, Kirloskar is selling that DG set to Praveen. In the books of Kirloskar, it wouldn't be called as capital goods. It would be called as inputs. Reason, Kirloskar wouldn't consider that as a balance sheet item for the purpose of capitalization. For Kirloskar, they're into process of manufacturing and selling DG sets. So every DG set which is manufactured by Kirloskar, they wouldn't call that as capital goods. So one aspect you need to understand when we talk about this law, capital goods should be looked from the person who is owning that capital goods, how he is giving the treatment in the books of accounts for the purpose of accounting. So if I have accounted that as a capital item, not as a revenue item, then I would call that as a capital goods. So any goods on which I claim input tax credit, if I take into my balance sheet as a capital asset, that would be called as capital goods. So this definition varies from person to person, the way they use that particular goods. This is first definition. Second definition, job work means any treatment or process. I have explained. Anything which you can think of doing an activity could fit into this one phrase called treatment or process. Cutting of steel, job work. Bending of steel sheets, job work. Punching, putting a hole, making an ATM box out of a steel, it's a job work. What else you can think? Embossing, like when you get I would give an example. Say you have a pen. On the pen, your company name should come. Your company logo should come. Embossing, there is a person who puts embossing. Say it's a metallic pen. On the metallic pen, your company name logo should come. LIC says, Praveen, I need 10 lakh pens to be supplied, where each pen should have a logo called LIC. Now, the person who does embossing is called as a job worker. Any treatment or process undertaken by a person on goods belonging to another registered person. Here, the crux of the understanding is another registered person. So the person who is giving the goods may be registered, may not be registered. So please understand, when you look into this definition of job work, all the provisions, what I'm going to discuss henceforth, will be applicable only when the other person is a registered person under GST law. Otherwise, it is irrelevant for us to understand. And the expression job worker shall be construed accordingly. So they say a person who is doing a process of activity or a treatment on the goods belonging to another registered person, and then it shall be called as job work. Next, manufacture. When you look into the definition called job work, when you look into the definition called manufacture, now I would say manufacture is a subset of job work. I would say job work is a macro definition. Manufacture is a microscopic definition. My manufacture fits into this activity of job work. Means processing of raw material inputs in any manner that results in emergence of a new product, having a distinct name, character, and used, the term manufacturer shall be construed accordingly. Now here, I gave example of the engine of Kirloskar, which comes to the state of Tamil Nadu. Assembly happens on the engine. A new product called DG set comes into picture. From job worker, assuming I am the person doing the job work activity, I did a manufacturing activity. How? Engine has come, acoustic has come, alternator has come. I assembled all the three products, made a new product called DG set. That's a new product which is coming called manufacturing activity. Now, my manufacturer says a new product should come into picture, but my job work says any activity or process undertaken on the goods belonging to another registered person. They rinse the matter. Now, that any activity or process could be a manufacturing activity, could not be a manufacturing activity. That is a simple reason I say even manufacturing gets conglomerated, gets subsumed into my major definition called job work. Next aspect called place of business. Now, this term place of business, it says a place of business includes a place from where business is ordinarily carried on. A place of business includes a place from where business is ordinarily carried on and includes a warehouse and includes a godown or any other place. Now, I'll come to this term called any other place, where a taxable person stores his goods. Any other place where a taxable person stores his goods. Now, I could have a warehouse, I could have a godown, or any other place where I store my goods, or supplies or receives goods or services, or both. Now, this is another impact. Supplies or receives goods or services, or both. So it says a place from where business is generally carried out. A place from where business is generally carried out. I'll explain this example from the state of Maharashtra. Mumbai, take example of Mumbai. You all know Mumbai is such a busiest place. Getting an inch of land, getting a square feet of land is very, very costly. So when you have 100 square feet, in 100 square feet, there will be 10 people who will be occupied to work because of the constraint of the space. Now, assuming you want to do a business activity, like there is one job worker premises, you want to import material, you want to get the material, get it processed and send it to customer. You could be a trader, you could be a wholesale dealer, you doesn't have any square feet other than a simple, say 10 by 10 square feet office. You will do crores of rupees of business in that 10 by 10 square feet. How does it happen? You use a place called job worker place where you receive the goods, you get it processed and you supply those goods back. So that is the relevance of this definition called place of business. A place of business means a place from where business is ordinarily carried out. Includes a warehouse, godown, or any other place where a taxable person stores his goods, supplies or receives goods for or services of both. So here, when I get the goods for job work, when I send the goods out of job work, that also could be part of my place of business. This is one important understanding for us to take away from the definition called place of business. Job work procedure. Now, this is one simple process. People who doesn't have experience, I'll make you very simple to understand this. Just follow with me. Now, you have your institute material. They have explained fantastically by a pictorial format. For ease of understanding, I'll explain how does this process happens. Section 143. All of you are familiar with this number. So 143 is one provision. 143 is one provision which deals with this activity called job work. Now, there's one question from Sankal. Sale of land is exempt, but if any one property primary amenities with plots or road, pipeline, colony, will it be taxable or not? Okay, Sankalp, I think now we are good enough to file your advanced ruling. So you can think of filing an advanced ruling. Just joking. I'll come to this question little later, Sankalp. Let me answer my topic for the day and then we'll come back to your question now. Right? Okay. Now, coming back to the job work. Section 143 is one provision which is relevant for all of you to understand. Section 143 says a registered person may under an intimation send inputs or capital goods without payment of tax to a job worker for job work. I will explain this paragraph in detail for most of you. to understand how this activity happens. Register person may, they have used a language called under an intimation, send inputs or capital goods. Something called without what? Payment of tax. Now, everyone, whatever is your understanding, just set it aside, follow the concept with me, then we will come back to understanding your theory of job work. Section 31. Most of us have read this section 31, which deals with your tax invoice. I gave one example called removal. When I talk about removal, movement of goods, what do you mean by removal? When the goods are removed for the purpose of supply, a tax invoice should be raised either on the date of removal or prior to removal. So when I remove the goods from my premises, does it tantamount to supply? Now, when I remove the goods out of my premises, should I need to reverse my input tax credit? These are the couple of questions which comes into mind. My job work procedure, my section 143 clearly says, look, you are a registered person, right? You may, under an intimation, send these inputs or capital goods to a job worker. Why? For the purpose of job work. I'll give an example. Say I have purchased a scribbling pad. Now, this particular scribbling pad has just a name called Papercraft. Now, I want to use this particular scribbling pad in my business activity for my promotion purpose. So what I will do, I'll request my job worker, please, print my company logo. Say Praveen Kumar Gilla, CA Praveen Kumar Gilla, my company logo. Every page I come across, let there be a company logo which is printed on this particular book, right? Now, when I purchased this book, I would have taken my input tax credit. I repeat the point. When I purchased this scribbling pad, I would have paid tax to the seller of the scribbling pad, and I have received the scribbling pad. Now, when I'm sending it out of my business premises, can it be called as a supply? Answer is no. I don't have an intention. To sell these goods to some other person. What is my intention? I want my company logo to be printed on that book, right? Now, who is doing that? I'm not doing it internally. I'm sending it to a publisher. Who can print my company name, company logo on that book. Now, I call that person as job worker. Praveen Kumar Gilla is registered under GST. Now, what they say, I can remove the inputs, I can remove the capital goods. Now, I'll come to a definition called inputs, capital goods over here. I, as a registered person, if I capitalize that in my books of accounts as capital goods, then it's a capital asset. I don't capitalize, then it is inputs. Now, book is not capital goods, it's input. Laptop, when I buy, I call that as a capital asset. It's a capital goods. So if I send any of this for what? For job work, then they say you need not pay the tax. Why? Because it is not a supply. Now, when we read section 31, we read that a tax invoice is required on removal. Now here, when it is not a supply, no tax invoice is required. So then what is required? We have to travel to something called Rule 55, which talks about my delivery challan. Whenever I talk about my tax invoice, it is section 31. Sir, I cannot issue tax invoice because it is not a supply. Then I refer to Rule 55 for using a delivery challan, right? So they say, look, whenever you are sending the goods to your job worker for a job work, don't use a tax invoice. Rather, you can use something called delivery challan. Now, there is something called under a intimation. Now, this intimation is nothing but filing of a periodical returns. As of now, quarterly returns called Form ITC 4. Now, the GST department says, look, you file your quarterly return called ITC 04. This is a deemed interpretation that you have intimated to the department. Now, sir, why this language? Why intimation? This is copied as it is from central excise, where under erstwhile central excise, whenever the goods are sent to a job worker, there is an intimation to be given to the range office. I have to say, from this area to that area, I'm sending the goods for job work. I'm registered under central excise. My job worker is registered under service tax. He does so and so activity and he is going to send back. Now, there's an intimation which is there under couple of VAT laws, couple of money under central excise. So when I got into GST law, they use the same language. So when they say intimation, there's no special permission required. The moment I file my quarterly return called ITC 04, that is a deemed intimation that these goods are sent for job work. Now, this particular return, next session I'm going to talk about returns. I'll make you clear understanding how these returns are filed, what contents are there in this return. For you as a student who doesn't know job work, please keep in mind, if a registered person wants to send inputs or capital goods for a job work to a job worker, no need to reverse my ITC, no need to raise a tax invoice, raise a form called delivery challan. This is good enough for me to send the material for job work purpose. Now, so what if my job worker A, like when I talk about job work, there are three people called three job workers. I'll go with this example of my, let me take example of a battery. Battery manufacturing activity, there is a fantastic example. When we think of this battery manufacturing, there will be something called the plastic case. There will be something called lead ignots. Now, my battery has got lead strings. When you look at this Exide or Amaron battery, this battery, plastic is manufactured at one location. The internal shell is manufactured at one location. The lead ingots are sent to the job worker. Plastic case is sent to the job worker. What does the job worker do? He will put the lead ingots into the plastic case. Now, job worker A manufactures plastic. So Exide sends the lead ingots to job worker A. This job worker A inserts that lead into plastic. From job worker A, it goes to job worker B. This job worker B, he puts this electric cables, connectors to that particular battery. From there, it goes to job worker C. Job worker C, he does the soldering, assembly, testing, final thing. After job worker C process, it will come back to Exide factory as it is. Now, there are three people in job work activity. Now, this section 143 says, look, Exide can send from their factory to job work A, from there to B, from there to C. After C's work, it can come back to Exide factory also. So, how entire this process is something which is permissible under my section 143. So, please make a note in your working note. First thing, register person, removal under intimation. Second, removal of inputs and capital goods. Third, without issuance of a tax invoice. Fourth, filing of periodical return called ITC 04. Fifth, movement of goods from one job worker to another job worker. Now, this is the entire process which is covered under my section 143. So when I'm talking about this process, there is couple of riders, couple of important things which we need to keep in mind. What it says, look, when you are sending your inputs, I will give you a time limit of 1 year. Rather, if you're sending your capital goods, I'll give you a time limit of 3 years. What they say, you send the material for job work, get it back after job work within a period of 1 year. At the same time, if you send your capital goods, you can send those capital goods and get back those capital goods within a period of 3 years. Now, this, when I say capital goods, there is an exception. For something called mold, dies, jigs, tools. There's one exception called no time limit applicable for mold, dies, jigs, fixtures, and tools. Now, these are all capital items. Couple of companies, when you look into inventory valuation, in the process of your internship, when you have looked into inventory valuation, there's something called list of consumables, like this fixtures and tools, jigs, fixtures and tools. They call inventory item of capital in nature, means only when the consumption happens, I can book that consumption. Otherwise, I'll form part of my closing stock. So the provision says, when I put time limit of 1 year, it is for inputs. When I put a time limit of 3 years, it is for capital goods. When I say capital goods, that does not include mold, dies, jigs, fixtures, tools. Please make a note in your working note. Please make a note in your working note. The time limit of 1 year or 3 years is not applicable for molds, dies, jigs, fixtures, and tools. That means, as a principle, when I send to job worker, there is no time limit within which it has to come back. This is what we need to understand from section 143. Now, I have used a language called bring back or supply. Now, I'll come to this particular important aspect, which is relevant for you. Bring back. I can bring back those goods after job work, or I can supply from the job worker premises to my customer. I gave an example of Uttar Pradesh. North Uttar Pradesh, South Uttar Pradesh, customer is in, say, Haryana. Don't mistaken me. Geographically, I'm talking. I'm not exactly well versed with this distance matters. Say, North Uttar Pradesh principal is there. South Uttar Pradesh job worker is there. And 30 kilometers from there is the customer of this particular supplier. So supplier from the premises of job worker after the job work activity can supply the goods to their customer. That is the term called supply. Another example. I was talking about Kirloskar. I was talking example of Mahindra and Mahindra. Mahindra and Mahindra or Kirloskar, when they send the material to job worker premises, they can supply the goods from the job worker premises instead of getting it back to their premises. My section 143 permits me to do so. Sir, sitting in Maharashtra, the DJ set in Tamil Nadu, can it happen? Can the supply happen? Answer is a big yes. Supply, movement of goods can happen from one state to another state under my job work route. Please keep in mind the scale of operations, costing techniques, and competitiveness. Job work route is one fantastic route for planning. So majority of you, once you get into the corporate, especially manufacturing sector, job work opens plethora of operations where you can think of reducing cost, you can think of economies of scale of production, working capital issues, blockage of your raw material, your JIT process of manufacturing activity. All these are possible only through job work, where supply happens from the premises of a job worker, right? This is one thing which you have to keep in mind with respect to time limit of getting those goods back or making supply from thereof. So as of now, students, please keep in mind, when the goods are sent to job work, it can be brought back after the job work, or those goods can be supplied from there itself to my customer. Now, time limit is 1 year for inputs, 3 years for capital goods. Now, one condition they say, when you want to supply the goods, the principal can supply those goods from the place of a job worker. Now, this is what they're saying. Principal can supply the goods from the place of a job worker. Now, from the place of a job worker, the principal can make a supply only when such place is added as a additional place of business. If job worker place is added as an additional place of business, then principal can make a supply from that particular place. Or job worker is already registered under GST law. Job work is already registered under GST law. So either of these two conditions, principal can supply the goods directly from the place of job worker. This is something for us to understand with respect to section 143. We have understood what can be sent. We have understood what is an intimation. We have understood a delivery challan. We also understood what is a time limit. We also have understood what is the meaning of supply from the premises of a job worker. Now, in relation to job work activity, the principal responsibility is to the maintenance of books of accounts lies with the principal. Always, when we talk about maintenance of books of accounts, this books of accounts shall be maintained by the principal. By how many kgs of steel you have sent, After the job work activity, how many kgs of steel you have received back? Example, your ATM machine. Year 2000, 2002. Year 2000 and 2002, these are the 2 years, a golden era where ATM machines started coming into our Indian economy. I repeat, 2002, 2005. Now, this is the period where majority of the banks have come with this principle called ATM machines. When you visualize this ATM machine, the steel sheets goes to a job worker. What does a job worker will do? He will cut the sheet, he will bend the sheet, he will punch the sheet, he will load the sheet, and he will do the soldering of the sheet, and he'll make a box called ATM box, right? Now, I've sent 10 sheets of steel having, say, 100 kgs. I have received an ATM box having 95 kgs. Now, the question comes here. Look, when steel was purchased, you have taken input tax credit of 100 kgs. That steel you have sent to the job worker. That job worker has sent you back 95 kgs of steel. What happened to the balance 5 kgs? Why should I give you the benefit of input tax credit? That is something where they want to hold the responsibility on the principal. That is the reason they say maintain a proper books of accounts. What is that you have sent? What is that you have received back? Sir, I have sent sheets. Sir, I have received back boxes. So have a converting factor, have a conversion factor. Every sheet, when I convert into finished goods, this is my equivalent conversion. So if I get 10 boxes, every box is weighing say 9.5 kgs. So when I receive 10 boxes, I'll say 10 into 9.5, 95 kgs of steel was received. When you have sent 10 sheets, 100 kgs you have sent. Conversion factor 9.5. 9.5 into 10, 10 boxes, 95 kgs have received. So 5 kgs is a scrap which is generated at the job worker premises. This is what they say. When the inputs are sent for job worker are not received back in a period of 1 year. Now this is a violation. This is a violation. Not received back or not supplied. Either not received back within a year or they're being sent out, they're not supplied from the premises of job worker. I said in the previous slide, I should get back within a year. I should supply within a year. So I have not received nor I supplied. Then they say there's a concept of deemed supply. When the day when I send the goods to the job worker, that is the day they have considered that it is a deemed supply. Now I'll come to my Excel file to make you understand this particular example. Let me go back to my Excel file. Hope you are able to see my Excel file. Job work activity. Now, time limit of 1 year. Now, I'll put this separately. 1 year and 3 years. Now, 1 year for inputs, 3 years for capital goods. 1 year for inputs, 3 years for capital goods. Let me increase the size. Hope you're able to see, friends. Now, say goods sent on job work. Now, my inputs were sent on, say, 11th July 2017. And the capital goods were sent on, say, 15th August 2017. Now, time limit given 1 year. So I'll add 365 days here. I'll add 365 into 3 years I'll add here. This plus 365 into 3. 14th August 2020. Now, this is the time limit for inputs to come back, for capital goods to come back. Assuming goods have come back, goods have not come back as on 31st March 2019, as on 31st March 2021. Now, this I'm considering as a cutoff date. Why? when the audit is happening from beginning of the year till end of the year, they consider. So here they're saying that it is presumed that deemed supply. My deemed supply is the day when I have removed the goods shall be deemed supply. Now, the moment I say deemed supply, my implications, non-payment of tax, non-issuance of a tax invoice. Now, I'll give an example for you to have a better understanding. I'll mention the value of goods. Say my inputs is worth 12 lakh and capital goods are worth say 4,50,000. I repeat, my value of goods is 12 lakhs and 4,50,000. This is my value of goods. And these goods are having a rate of tax. My rate of tax is 12% and this is say 18%. Now, 18%. Now, what they say, if you don't get back those goods within a period of 1 year or within a period of 3 years, they say it is deemed supply 12 lakhs into 12%. Similarly here. Now, this is a tax the officer would demand along with interest and penalty on the principal. Tax to be demanded on the supplier. So in case of inputs, 1,44,000. In case of my capital goods, 81,000. So officer would demand tax along with interest and penalty. This is what the exposure I have in relation to the goods which have not come back within a period of 1 year or 3 years. This is what we need to understand. Let me come back to my presentation. Now, before I go further, let me see if there are any questions posted till now. Okay, I guess so far so good. There are no questions posted till now. Okay, now. Okay. Deemed supply of capital goods if not received back within a period of time limit. This is what we have to understand. If the goods have not come back within 1 year, if the goods have not come back within 3 years, question comes here. Always, we have this sound in our mind. So what if it will come after 1 year? So what if it comes within 3 years? 3 years, you say, after 3 years to 15 days, the goods have come back. They say, look, the moment it has not come back within 1 year, you have violated your provisions. It is deemed supply the day when it has taken out. Though it has come back, now what they say, it is a supply from you to the job worker. Again, job worker has to raise an invoice on me. I'll come back to my example to explain the same provision. Now, here, assuming the date of return, my date of return. Now here, time limit given is this much. For me, the time limit given is this much. Actual date of return is on say 15th of July 18. And here, say 12th December 20. Now, though the goods have come back, the law says, look, I have given you 1 year, I have given you 3 years. If it has not come back, I presume that the principal supplied to the job worker and job worker should account as a purchase, and again job worker should raise an invoice for that particular material. This is a cumbersome activity which is a legal provision. So for that reason, wherever you do audit, please keep in mind to recommend to your assessee, ensure that within a year, within 3 years, the capital goods or inputs do come back after job work. Next. In case of scrap, wherever there is a scrap, I give example of that 100 kgs got converted into 10 boxes. 100 sheets have sent, sorry, 10 sheets have sent, it has come back as a box. 5 kgs scrap has been generated. Law says, if there is a scrap generated, if you are a principal, job work is not registered, you pay the tax on that particular scrap. Sir, what if the job worker is registered? Let job worker pay the tax and remove that particular material. Anything is okay for me is what they say. Again, I repeat, if there is a scrap generated, on that scrap, let the principal pay the tax and sell the scrap. So what if job work is already registered? Let the job worker pay the tax and remove that scrap from the premises. This is what my law says in relation to job work scrap generation. Next. This is another important aspect, possible area of dispute, possible area of tax planning. I wouldn't say tax avoidance, tax planning. Just give me a minute. I'll be back. Just give me a minute. Now, this particular section 19. This particular section 19 is one provision where it says any goods which have come to the job work, any goods which are sent directly to job work, the principal can avail the input tax credit. I'll give an example to make you understand better on this aspect. I'll come back to my Excel file. Say there's a principal manufacturer. This principal manufacturer is in, say, Haryana. There's a job worker in the state of, say, Bihar. There's a supplier in the state of, say, Maharashtra. Now, logistically, material going to Haryana, again from Haryana going to Bihar, right? Now, don't mistake me. I'm just taking a vague example just to make you understand. Now, if you look at this particular model, let me draw a couple of lines over here. Yeah. If supplier is sending the goods from Maharashtra to Haryana, instead, if the supplier has to send the goods from Maharashtra to, say, Bihar, after the job work from Bihar, the goods should travel back to Haryana. Say from Maharashtra to Haryana, I call this as A. I call this as B. I call this as C. Now, if Maharashtra to Haryana goods have to travel, so the distance is say 450 kilometers. From Maharashtra to Bihar, again, it's a hypothetical example. Don't hold responsible for the kilometers wrong calculation. Just an example to make you clear. So from Maharashtra to Bihar, so it is 360 kilometers. From Haryana to Bihar, say it is 200 kilometers. Now, Maharashtra to Haryana, 450 kilometers. From Haryana back to Bihar, right? From 450, again I have to send here. So 450 plus 200, 600 kilometers. Now, this principle says, look, don't send me to Haryana. You send those goods to Bihar. Now, one, I'm saving transportation time. Second, I'm saving the cost of transportation. Third, I'm saving my inventory space. Fourth, I'm ensuring that JIT system is maintained for my process to get captured. Now here what will happen? The principal who's there in Haryana, he'll give an instruction to supplier. Please don't send it to me. You send the material from Maharashtra to Bihar. Let the process happen in Bihar. From Bihar, let it come back to Haryana. Now, say Maharashtra, this supplier raised invoice on 1st January 2018. It reached Bihar on 12th January 2018. After the job work, it reached Haryana on, say, 15th March 2018. Now, when this is a business model, business model, my section 19 comes into rescue. What it says, I'll give a name here. This gentleman I'll call as A, this gentleman I'll call as B, and this gentleman I'll call as C. Sorry. Now, please watch carefully and understand carefully. Supplier B, when he raises an invoice on 1st January and he gives the delivery on C on 12th January, the same day A can account for those goods as a purchase. A can avail the benefit of input tax credit because the goods were received by C on 12th January 2018. I'll give case 1. Case 1. Now I'll put here B, A, C. Now B is in Maharashtra, A is in Haryana, C is in Bihar, right? Now B has raised an invoice on 1st January. These goods were received by C on 12th January. Now here A can account for that purchase, can also avail input tax credit during Jan 2018. I repeat, my section 19 says, look, this gentleman C has received the goods on behalf of A, principal agent. When the delivery of goods happened at the premises of C in Bihar, this is a deemed concept of receipt of goods under section 16 subsection 2. So when there is a goods received by C, it is presumed that A has received those goods. Because C has received in the month of January, A can avail the input tax credit in the month of January. Case 2. I'll take case 2. A has billed the material on 18th January 2018. The goods were received by C on 31st January 2018. Again, my A can take the input tax credit in the month of Jan 2018. Case 3. B has billed on 25th January 2018. C has received those goods on 15th Feb 2018. Now, in this case, my A can take the input tax credit during February 2018. Receipt of goods or services. My section 16 says you can avail input tax credit on receipt of goods, on receipt of services. Now, A physically is not receiving the goods. C on behalf of A is receiving the goods. In this case, law says, section 19 says, A can very well enjoy the benefit of input tax credit, though he has not received the goods on the same day. Because it is received by C, he can enjoy the benefit of input tax credit. Now, this entire concept, both inputs and capital goods, ITC can be enjoyed by this particular gentleman called A. So, hope you have understood this concept of my job work. Let me go back to my presentation. Now, this principle says, section 19, the principal shall be allowed to avail ITC. Shall be, not maybe, shall be. It's an affirmative. The principal shall be allowed to avail ITC on inputs or capital goods sent to job work for the activity of job work, subject to a time limit of 143. So, the goods which have been received by the job worker, I repeat, the goods which have been received by the job worker for job work, the goods which have been received by the job worker for job work, though it has not come directly to the place of principal, the principal can avail input tax credit. Now, what is the role of you as a professional, as a chartered accountant, when I advise, as a chartered accountant, when I audit, we need to ensure, look, there's a bill given by Maharashtra supplier. Sitting in Haryana, I do audit after say 6 months. How do I know in the month of January, these goods were actually received by C? I don't visit Bihar. I'm not there physically. How do I know that these goods were actually received by this job worker? We have something called POD, proof of delivery. When C puts an acknowledgement, when he receives a bill, he says, yes, I have received the material. He gives an acknowledgement for receipt of goods in his factory. Let that be a copy available with this particular principle for the purpose of availment of input tax credit. Friends, this is something which you give a valuation out of your learning to protect the interest of the assessee. Further, principle is to avail input tax credit on inputs or capital goods directly received at the premises of job worker instead of they brought to the premises of the principal. This is what they say. Now, the concept of deeming supply, as I have explained, 1 year for inputs, 3 years for capital goods. If I don't get those material within 1 year, within 3 years, law says it is deemed that you supply to job worker the day when it received at job worker premises. Now here, reference to utilization of a delivery challan for movement of those goods and relevance of e-way provisions. Now, what they say, I'll go back to my Excel file to make you understand with respect to this job work and e-way provisions. Here, see in this model, when supplier raises a tax invoice, what he will say, supplier will say, bill to ship to this gentleman A, ship to gentleman C, who the B is going to raise a tax invoice. On the tax invoice, he clearly mentions bill to A, ship to C. The same thing is communicated in e-way bill. E-way bill, the delivery location, like I deliver the goods to C. Who is the registered person recipient? A. In the e-way bill, B, when he raises the e-way bill, he will mention, I bill to A, I ship to C. This is what delivery location. Recipient and delivery location. This is what we need to understand with respect to e-way bill provisions. Now, I was talking about C. Now, C has to say, I have process 1 done by C, process 2 done by say D, process 3 done by E. Now, what happens? C will raise a delivery challan to send the goods to D. D again will raise a delivery challan to E. So here DC will be used. And E, after the job work, he raised an invoice on this gentleman called B. Sorry, E. This gentleman, let me reduce the size a little bit. After the job work, this gentleman E will raise his service invoice to A. Similarly, this D, this C, whoever have finished their work, there is a service invoice on A by C or D or E. As and when their work is over, C will raise an invoice on A, D will raise an invoice on A, E also will raise an invoice on A. This is called service invoice. So we need to understand this from our movement of goods point of view, right? Next, valuation. Very important aspect. Examination, expect 1 4 marks question on this valuation. Now, this says, when goods are supplied by principal for job working, processing, what is the value? I gave an example. Say, this paper is given to me. I have to convert this paper to this scribbling pad. The value of paper is, say, 10 rupees. The value of scribbling pad is 15 rupees. Now, what is the valuation to these two? The valuation is a glue, a cardboard, and a cover sheet. All this put together is 15 rupees. Now, in this 15 rupees, glue belongs to me. The value of glue is 3 rupees. The question comes here. As a job worker, should I raise a bill for 3 rupees or should I raise a bill on 15 rupees? Value, section 15, inclusive basis. When something is supplied free of cost to you, when in the purpose of rendering your supply, the free of supply material should also be considered as a part of your valuation. I'll give an example. Whenever you think about section 15, whenever you think about this inclusion in section 15, one important aspect you need to see is there any free of cost supply? Is there any supply which is relevant for my supply? Now here, say there is a building to be constructed. When you think of constructing a building, unless steel, cement, bricks is there, I cannot do a construction activity. Say out of these three, like manpower, steel, cement, these two were given by the customer. I add bricks, I add manpower and do the construction activity. When I'm doing a supply of works contract, unless steel and cement is there, I cannot do the works contract. So here, something which is in my scope of works contract, which is given as free of cost, should be considered is what they say, right? Now, this is one important aspect under section 15, subsection 2. Now here, any goods which are given to me, I'm working on the goods belonging to the principal. What you have to see, the thumb rule for job work is only on the value addition. I repeat, only on the value addition you're supposed to charge GST, not anything else. Whatever is belonging to the principal, whatever is given to me, I don't consider in my valuation. Only valuation from my end, I'll consider it for my valuation. Now, job work adds valuation at their end with the aid of machinery, manpower, and few consumables. So only that valuation I have to consider for my charging GST purpose. Value addition. This is the alone element I have to consider. Now, there is one circular which talks about contract manufacturing. Contract manufacturing. Now, example of this Kirloskar, example of Mahindra and Mahindra, what I have given to you, Exide. These are all called contract manufacturing. Why? A new product is coming into picture, like Exide, a plastic case, nothing is there. A lead ignots, which is put into a case, that's called, like, no, you're putting ignots, you're putting the electrical cables, you're doing an assembly. A new product which comes into picture is called battery. Plastic case, lead ignots, electrical wires, soldering machine. All these are different items. When I put together, battery is manufactured. That's called contract manufacturing. Now, example for contract manufacturing. Say there is a manufacturer called ABC Private Limited. This ABC Private Limited is into manufacturing of engine. There's a supplier called Push Private Limited who manufactures acoustic enclosure. People who doesn't know, I'll put it this way. As I say, box, if you see the box, this is the exterior box. This is called acoustic enclosure. What is the purpose of this acoustic enclosure? This acoustic enclosure reduces the noise. It has a capacity to not to throw out a noise when an engine is running. When you switch on the DG side, is a sound which generates in the earlier point of time. These days, you don't even visualize that there is an engine which is running. So, this engine is to have an acoustic. There is a job worker called XYZ Private Limited. This job worker, what does he do? He assembles the engine, he assembles the acoustic enclosure with a control panel. I bring engine, I put an acoustic enclosure on that. In between, I put something called alternator. That means the control panel. I have acoustic, I have engine. All this I assemble and insert a control panel. Then it becomes a DG set. ABC Private Limited sends the engine. Acoustic Push Private Limited sends the acoustic enclosure. This acoustic enclosure, all this put together, I manufacture something called DG set. This DG set is sold to a customer on behalf of ABC Private Limited. Now, in the entire process, if I presume the value, let me draw. Yeah. If the value of engine is say 5 lakhs, if the value of acoustic enclosure is say 2 lakhs, and the assembly activity I have done for 1 lakh, 5 plus 2, 7 plus 1, 8 lakhs. This DG set is sold to this customer on behalf of this particular gentleman this particular gentleman for say 10 lakhs. Now, the value of supply in the hands of XYZ Limited is 1 lakh. Only on this 1 lakh, GST is payable, not on 10 lakhs. I repeat, 5 lakhs is the engine cost, 2 lakhs is the acoustic cost, 1 lakh is the DG set assembly cost. 5 plus 2, 7 plus 1, 8. Total 8 lakhs is the cost in the hands of ABC Private Limited. ABC Private Limited can sell this goods for 10 lakhs to a customer. From the shoes of XYZ Private Limited, from the view of a job worker, 1 lakh is the cost on which I have to charge GST. This is the example we need to keep in mind for examination purpose. Now, this one circular which I have picked up for your quick understanding. When molds, dies and are supplied by a OEM to a job worker on a FOC, free of cost, should the ITC to be reversed? The circular says OEM has supplied this capital goods for job worker for the purpose of business activity. No need to reverse the ITC. Where a component manufacturer receives that on FOC, should he include that mold cost and amortize that particular FOC cost? Again, they say, look, OEM has given something to you for job work activity on a FOC basis. Because this is not in your scope, you as a component manufacturer, no need to do any amortization. This one question is tested in your examination for 4 marks. Keep in mind, any capital goods supplied on FOC basis, I as a job worker should not include that FOC value in my value addition. Reason, that has given to me on FOC basis, I have not to consider that as my amortization cost. Third question, slightly tinkered. If this component manufacturer, it is in his scope to use that particular machinery. I repeat, if component manufacturer has to supply the goods after job work using a capital goods which are actually supplied by FOC. So if the capital goods is in the scope of a job worker, then amortization has to be done. Answer is yes. So friends, till this we come to the end of our job work provisions. Expect 1 4 marks question from your job work. For sure, there's one case law which is tested in your examination. So let me see if there are any questions before I go to my miscellaneous provisions. So far so good. No questions are there. Anything on job work? Let me come back to my presentation. Yeah. Now, we are going to start with miscellaneous provisions. I'll give you a background why these miscellaneous provisions are there. Examination point of view, not much to worry. Only a couple of slides are there. I'll draw your attention. When I talk about miscellaneous provisions, these are the provisions which are ancillary, which gives a direction, which gives an indication for a lawmaker how to regulate a law. You as a student, when you're reading this particular provisions, when you're reading the act, these miscellaneous provisions are like indicators. Now, when you drive a bike, drive left, take a left, take a right. I'm going to put an indicator. So this is going to guide the legal provisions in couple of instances for the assessee or for the officer concerned. Like example, when some information is called by the officer, what is the legality? When information is given, when I reply to the question, what is the way that particular information will be looked at from the department point of view? How that will be put up for your scrutiny? How it will be taken up for prosecution? How it will be important for my abstracting evidence in the process of issuing summons? How I'll take that particular documents? These are all the various provisions called guidelines which are covered in this particular miscellaneous provisions. Institute material has covered in detail these miscellaneous provisions. Page number 24. Yeah. Now, if you come to your page number 24.2, Institute material has done a fantastic job of clubbing the relevant provisions under various buckets like documentation, furnishing, collection and publishing of information, removal of difficulties, delegation of powers, omission and repeal of earlier laws, other provisions, and IGS laws. Now, this is the four, five buckets which Institute Material has covered in a fantastic manner under para 24.2. Now, let me start with my miscellaneous provisions. First provision called presumption as to documents in certain cases. Presumption as to document. I think, yeah. Yeah. This is my first provision, section 144, which deals with your presumption as to documents, where any document is provided by a person under this act or law for timing force, or the documents have been seized from the custody or control of a person, or documents have received from any place outside India in the course or any proceedings of this act or any other law for timing force. Now here, a document, when you talk about this documentation, remember, these are the evidences, these are the way how information can be collated for the purpose of assessment. Documents are produced by any person. Now, there was a notice sent by the departmental officer. I responded to that notice with a evidence. That is one mechanism. Documents have been seized from the custody or control. Second mechanism, I don't come and ask you. I don't send a letter to you. I come for an inspection. In the process of inspection, I seize some documents. Third, the documents have been received from a place outside India in the course of proceedings, like your what you call Swiss bank account, or any of the investments in a property, or any money which has been transferred from a foreign nation to an Indian account. There are different ways how the information, the documents can be collected. One, directly from you. Two, directly by a force called seizure. Third, indirectly from a foreign nation in relation to any proceedings under this act or any other law for timing in force. And what they say, when any of these documents are recovered, those documents is, and such document is tendered for prosecution, that shall be consumed, that shall be presumed that it is an evidence which has been obtained against you or in favor of you. Unless you prove that this is not my document, these are presumed to be documents collected for the purpose of prosecution. I repeat, have in mind, always keep your mind alert whenever you exchange some documents with the government office. Whenever there is a scrutiny notice, whenever there is a notice sent by the department, when some statement is given to the department, have utmost verification of the genuineness, correctness, and the facts of that particular statement. Reason, if that statement is collected, that can prove as a evidence against you in any of the prosecution related proceedings in under this law or any other law for timing force, unless contrary is proved by that person that no, these documents does not belong to me. Reason, when a document is given, seal, signature is there of a particular person, you have to prove, demonstrate to the government authority that no, it is not my document. What is evidence you have? When you have given the documents, you need to prove that these documents are either provided by you or not provided by you. If you don't have any evidence to prove that these documents are not belonging to you, then the authority concerned will set aside those particular documents. Fantastic provision. Under the electronic era, section 145 is one of the fantastic and fine-tuned provision. This provision says, section 145, admissibility of microfilm, facsimile, copies of documents and computer printouts as documents and as evidence. Any of these documents can be considered as an evidence in the legal proceedings against you, in the prosecution. Remember carefully, a computer seized, a laptop seized, software taken as a backup in their pen drive, tally software, tally backup taken as a backup in their file, in their pen drive. Please keep in mind, this provision says it is a provision carved out from an Evidence Act, 1872. This is a provision which was brought out from your Evidence Act. What do they say? Evidence which is taken from microfilm of a document or the reproduction of image or embodied into such microfilm. Facsimile copy, it's a fax copy. Statement contained in a document included in a printed material of or produced by a computer. Any information stored electronically. Whenever they come for audit, they try to seize your accounts, try to seize your records. A printout given from your laptop, which is called tax invoice. An invoice which is printed and kept in your file, picked up by the officer. All these are the documents they say are evidence tendered against you unless contrary is provided by you. I repeat, whenever there is a seizure, whenever there is a audit, whenever there is an inspection, when an officer has taken something from your machines, from your soft copy from your machines, or a box file which is there where they have taken as a invoice file, a document which is printed, those are the evidences which can be produced before a magistrate in the process of prosecution. Why? This law, section 145 says, read with my Evidence Act 1872, all these are the documents which can be put forth before any authority to call for as a evidence against the assessee. Now, this is one provision which talks about that. Now, unless there is a contrary, now, like this provision says, look, I have a photocopy of an invoice. This provision says it is not compulsory that original should only be available to substantiate that this is not a genuine document. There's a rental agreement. There's a contract copy for 10 lakhs. I have received money for executing a contract. I cannot argue, sir, the officer who has taken the file from my office are all photocopy. It is not a, a genuine or original copy. I cannot take that plea before the authority. Reason, anything which is recovered from your office can be considered as evidence against you in any of the prosecution if there is any malified intent, if there is any tax evasion. Until and unless you prove that this is a document which cannot be established as evidence, you don't have any recourse on that. Next provision, 148, special procedure for certain process. Now, this is one provision where government, on the recommendations of the GST Council, they can notify certain class of registered person. For what purpose? They're going to notify certain class of registered person for what? Special procedure to be followed. Special procedure. What is a special procedure? When I go to Tirupati, in South India, we have this famous temple called Tirupati Tirumala Devasthanam. I, being a VIP, I being a special person, I have a special darshan. We have L1, L2, L3. Means a person who gets a very good nearby access to the the deity, a person who gets a very special royal treatment. That's what they say. The same way, the lawmaker has a right to identify a registered person to give a special process, special procedure. For what? For the purpose of registration, for the purpose of furnishing of a return, for the purpose of payment of taxes. A classic example for you, recent amendments in the GST law, there is something called QRMP scheme, quarterly return, monthly payment. Now, a return to be filed on a quarterly basis. I'm a special person. A person having an aggregate turnover less than 5 crores can be called as a special person. That special person can file his return on a quarterly basis. Payment of taxes. I have to pay tax. I can pay either 35% or self-assessed tax. Now, this particular section 148 says that government has an authority, or rather I would say liberty, to identify some special persons or identify special registered persons to enable the process of registration, like NRTP, like casual taxable person. They say NRTP should apply 5 days prior to their commencement of business. So when I talk about a registration, they may notify a special person, they may notify a special procedure for the purpose of registration, for the purpose of filing of returns, for the purpose of payment of taxes. So any of these three, there could be a special procedure under section 148. Examination, I'm not focusing. It is only from your academics point of view how I would read these provisions. Next. 150, obligation to furnish information written. Now, expect one question from this section 150. A major revamp happened to section 150 in the recent budget. A 2 marks question with respect to miscellaneous provisions. What is the authority for an officer under section 150? I repeat, what are the obligations of a registered person when there is an information written called under the provisions of GST law? They ask your question on the basis of this term called information written. They will say, who is the person obligated to file information written? Who are the officers having a right to call for information written? What is the purpose of calling for information written? Expect one 3 marks question. Recent budget, a lot of amendments were made to section 150. Because of that change, whenever there is a the act is getting amended, this being a sunset provision of May 2021, expect one 3 marks series question from the information written. As of now, they have said there are 16 category of persons. I draw your attention to page number 150. Yeah. In the institute material, they have given you list of those people who have to file something called information written. So that particular information written, any of those categorized 16 persons, 16 people, when they are called for, generally, what is that they have to give? They have to give some information in relation to filing of returns. Section 150, when I look into the nature of persons, these persons are a person who is registered under GST law or any of those government officers which are notified. Yes. Generally, this provision, if you see, there is a peculiarity of why that information is called for. In case of your investigation, in case of your this prosecution, in case of summons, they use this as a tool for gathering the information. A person who is registered or a person, taxable person, local authority, authority of a state government, central government, income tax authority. Now these days, you're getting notices based on your income tax returns file. Based on the income tax available in Form 26A, they're sending notice. Why? That information is available with the income tax authorities. They say all this information. What they will ask, what is the date you're registered? What is the statement of accounts you have? What are the periodical returns were filed under income tax or any other law? What are the documents available under your act? What are the taxes they are paid? What is the details of supply of goods and services as per your records? As a bank, how much is the money received or paid from that particular account? As an electricity board, what is the monthly consumption of electricity? All this is the information they gather for the purpose of investigation. Next is your power to collect statistics. This is an ancillary provision where commissioner, if he feels that he has to make some study of a particular industry, he can gather information where we have read the provisions of section 130, 125, 126, 127, where there are miscellaneous penal provisions. If there is a statistics to be supplied, this particular department has to give information called upon by the commissioner by way of a notification. In case if they fail to give that information or they give information which is a falsified information, then there is a no penal provisions drawn on that particular person. Just a informative thing. Next. Sorry, let me just share the screen. Yeah. So this particular provision says how information can be called for analysis purpose. Next. Bar on disclosure of information. Bar on disclosure of information. Now, this is important. When the government officer has gathered the information, that government officer, that proper officer cannot reveal any of this information. Section 150, your information written. Section 151, statistics. When a government officer has gathered that information, he cannot reveal. One classic example. Sir, I'm working in GSTN. I work in Infosys. I can see all the returns filed by various SSC. Just because I have a knowledge of the information of these SSC, I don't have a right to reveal that anywhere outside. That information cannot be presented anywhere without the prior consent of a person from whom that information has been called for. And institution of your prosecution provisions, they'll say, look, on the basis of this information available with our office, I have initiated a prosecution under this law. A classic example. I was talking about your electricity consumption. A person who is into manufacturing activity, say on a monthly basis, there is a 5 lakhs electricity bill. Now they say this person is into cardboard manufacturing. So this packing boxes. You're into packing boxes manufacturing activity. Last year you had a turnover of 2 crores. This year you declared a turnover of 50 lakhs. Now when I say last year, you had a monthly average electricity consumption of 3 lakhs. This year you had an average electricity consumption of 4 lakhs. Last year you disclosed a turnover of 2 crores. This year you disclosed only a turnover of 50 lakhs. Tell me why the difference of 150 lakhs should be demanded from you, which was not paid as a tax. I feel that you have been doing a manufacturing activity, you have been producing the cardboards, but you have suppressed the facts for disclosing the turnover. That's how this information cannot be used unless it is required for my prosecution activity. Now, if commissioner wants to call for a statistics and you want to publish, in general, the opinion or consent prior period is not required. Now, burden of proof, a very, very important provision. All the students are listening to me. Please make a note of section 155. Across your career, you are going to come across this 155. Burden of proof. Where a person claims is eligible input tax credit under this act, I repeat, claims that he is eligible for input tax credit, the burden of proving such claim shall lie on such person. So the provision says, wherever you say, I'm eligible for input tax credit, I'm eligible for input tax credit, eligible for input tax credit, then the burden of proving such claim is on you. The burden of proving such claim is on you. How? Why? When I claimed input tax credit, when the audit party has come, I don't have original bill. I have only a photocopy of a bill. The officer says, Praveen, I don't trust you have availed that service. You don't have an original copy. I will disallow the input tax credit. You, as a registered person, you have to prove that this bill has been received. So you have to provide an original copy when there is a demand. Second aspect. Receipt of goods, receipt of services. I have claimed input tax credit of say 20 lakhs on one consignment, bill to ship to model. Officer says, Praveen, you cannot take input tax credit because I believe section 16 says goods should have been received. In the bill to ship to model, you don't have evidence to say that this consignment was received by a third party on your behalf. Burden of proof. I gave an example of Maharashtra, Bihar, Haryana. When the goods are sent from Maharashtra to Bihar, you have to have evidence to say that you have received the goods, or the Bihar person, the person C has received on behalf of A. This is called burden of proof. So always ensure there is sufficient evidence to ensure this ITC is entitlement properly under the law. Protection of action taken under this act. Protection of action taken under this act. Now they say there are a couple of people I protect their interests, like appellate tribunal. The members who are there in appellate tribunal, whenever they give their opinion, whenever they give their judgment, the law says I protect their interests. None of those officers will be punishable, though the orders served are they have delivered the orders in their capacity. I don't hold them responsible. The same way, none of the officers concerned under this particular legal proceedings shall be held responsible if they have delivered their duty in a good faith. So they have protected the interest of these members. Assessment proceedings, etc., not to be invalid on certain grounds. Important, make a note, section 160. Please write. This you are going to come across in your audit. When you're going to represent the assessee, most of the assessment provisions, you can use this as a tool, you can use this as a weapon. Now, what this provision says, no assessment, reassessment, adjudication, review, revision, appeal, rectification, or notice summons, etc. These aspects shall not be set aside because of invalid or because of any mere mistake, defect, or omission. I repeat. These provisions says, if there is a mistake or defect or omission where in any of these particular aspects, if there's a small mistake or a defect or an omission, they say this process cannot be set aside. Example, assessment, reassessment. They've sent a notice for reassessment. My GST number was not mentioned. I cannot argue in front of the court of law, sir, they have sent a notice to me. They have mentioned my address. They have mentioned my name. They have mentioned my GST number. But sorry, they have not mentioned my GST number. But for my GST number, everything they have confirmed. Then, sir, it is a mistake. It is a defect because they are not served on me. It is not a valid assessment. It is not valid adjudication. No, these are the technical grounds you can fight saying that this process itself is a defective process. Another fantastic provision. When there is a process of this assessment, reassessment, etc., you can have a choice not to accept that document. Right? Again, I say, when there is a communication given on me, if I don't accept that particular communication, no proceedings can be done on me. The moment I accepted or the moment I responded to a defective communication, a classic example, a notice is given to me, a show cause notice is given to me, there is a document identification number called DIN is something which is required. Sir, I received a notice. This notice has got all the information. Only one thing called DIN, document identification number, missed out. Effective from October 2019, our Honorable Prime Minister Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi said DIN is compulsory. The same is ratified by Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. So if government sends any document which doesn't have a DIN, you can tear and throw it in dustbin. If you don't do, you responded back, then you don't have any rescue on that. Next element called rectification of errors or errors apparent on the face of the record. In the process of this judicial process, if there is a notice, order, or any certificate which was given, couple of mistakes are there apparent on the record. Now the order, it says, the heading of the document says 15th October 2020. Actually, this was issued on 15th October 2021. Means they have given dated 1 year back. Then this is called a mistake apparent on the record. 15th October was wrongly written as 10.15.2020. Money, October, instead of putting in the month's position, they've changed. Some sort of these mistakes, if there is any apparent on the record, that can be rectified. They have said within a period of 3 months, that can be rectified. Next, levy of fees. Now, this is one provision. Youngsters who are going to come into this line of litigation or advisory, this is something important. Please keep in mind, any government document you can retrieve, you have a right called RTA, Right to Information Act. Prior to RTA, say I have joined an organization, there was some appeal mechanism or there is some pending appeal going on. Now, the documents are not available with me. I got a show cause notice from the department saying that for the period 2017, we sent a notice, you have not come. For the period of 2017, there was an order, so you haven't come again for the order. Now, I'm going to attach the bank account for the non-response of that particular order. That point in time, you can write a letter to the officer. My dear officer, I don't have a copy of order. Kindly give me a copy of that certified copy of that order. When I pay nominal fee, like 100 rupees per paper or 10 rupees per paper they charge, and they give a copy of order for your record purpose. So assessor has a right to get that copy of order by paying some nominal fee. Now, this is one provision, 164, government to make rules. Now, as of today, there are around close to 15 times my rules were amended. In the last 3 years, minimum 15 times my rules got amended. Section 164 says that the government has authority to amend the rule as and when they feel so. But when they are amending the rule, they can have an authority to amend the rule retrospectively or from a date to be notified. I draw attention of you could have heard something called AAP Co and Co Chartered Accountants. AAP and Co Chartered Accountants, Gujarat High Court. Now, if you're a student who is willing to get into practice, who is a student who is very inclined to read in IDT provisions, read this judgment of AAP and Co. Gujarat High Court judgment. A fantastic case which was put forth by a professional friend of us in terms of eligibility of input tax credit under Section 16. This was one landmark judgment where the government has invoked Section 164 to amend my Rule 60 retrospectively to say GSTR 3B filed under these rules is a rule written under Section 39. Now, this is one particular authority. They can amend a rule retrospectively. All along, we were filing GSTR 3B. Never ever in the year 2017-2018, they have said that GSTR 3B is written under Section 39. After this remarkable judgment of Gujarat High Court, my government of India, on the recommendations of the council, they made a retrospective amendment to this rule saying that my GSTR 3B is written under Section 39. This is one must read for many of you, I would recommend. Then any of those rules you have amended, they say all these rules should be, notification should be put before the parliament, upper house, lower house. And any of those rules and notifications shall be ratified by both the houses. In case this both the houses doesn't ratify, they say a minute change is required. From the day they have suggested that minute change will be done, any act done prior to that shall continue with a good intent how it has been formulated. Next, Section 169, service of notice in certain circumstances. Now, I think let me just recap one of friend who asked this question. So, what do you mean by communication? Sending through courier. I think Sankalp is a person who asked this question. So, communication means served or received. Sankalp, your question is answered in this slide, ma'am. My communication means it can be done directly through messenger. It can be done through courier. It can be given on the addressee, taxable person, manager, authorized representative, advocate, practitioner, or any of the LLT in a family. Now, all these are the people, there can be a communication directly through a messenger. A person who comes to your office, gives that notice, takes the acknowledgement, goes back. Messenger. Courier, also accepted. Next mode called register post, speed post, acknowledgement due. Now, when you receive this communication in any of these modes, it is presumed that the day you have received that communication, where there is a proof with the department. In case of courier, I sign the document. In case of register post, speed post, the day I received that document, that shall be called as communication. Sir, I have not received. My authorized representative has received. That is also deemed to be a communication. These days, electronic era, all the notices are coming through email. Alternatively, on the login portal, the moment I log into the common portal, there's a notice which comes and sits on my common portal. All these they say as a mode of communication, modem of communication. So what if this gentleman is not traceable? Put an advertisement in newspaper. So what if I have put an advertisement in newspaper? There's nothing, I cannot do anything. Then they have a business, they have an office or residence. Put a notice on their premises. At least someone recognize and let them come back, saying that this person is not responding to any of the notices for summons or any of the prosecution related activities. Rounding of taxes, important. This provision says when you calculate a tax, assuming I have calculated the tax on a sum of rupees of taxable value, I get tax of 12 rupees 35 paisa. So can I make 12 rupees 35 paisa to 12 rupees? Answer is yes. Sir, can I make 12 rupees 85 paisa to 13 rupees? Answer is yes. So you can round off to the nearest rupee. If it is less than 50 paisa, make it to less than. If it is more than 50 paisa, increase it to the next rupee. This mechanism is permissible under Section 170. Now, Next provision called removal of difficulties. Now, the moment we read this term, removal of difficulties, in whose interest they formulate, we don't know. But the law says the government can issue special order or a general order for removing difficulties of GST law, like within a 5 years. Like they say, from July 2017, within 5 years, they can bring these orders to remove any difficulty. As of today, 17 orders were issued under GST law. Friends, we come to the fag end of our discussion called anti-profiting. This mechanism of anti-profiting says, look, when you migrated from erstwhile law to this law, you have accumulated input tax credit, or you have been in a comfortable position where there's a possibility of reducing your tax burden. I would recommend this one topic called anti-profiting. We have the next session, which is coming on this Saturday, 20th March. I'll hold this topic alone called anti-profiting. Reason, there is a couple of technicalities which I have to make you to understand. So because of paucity of time, let us stop our discussion today. I'll continue with my topic on 20th March. Along with returns, I'll explain this provision called anti-profiting. Till such time, see you all, and good night for today. Jay? Jay, are you there? Yes, Jay. Good night, Jay.